Yeah, we're off. Hi, guys.
Daily News Live, and it is going to be.
Oh, go on.
Good afternoon, friends. Stephen Benoon here with Israeli News Live, and it is going to be a interesting ride today. We are going to be examining Planet X. We're going to be looking at that from a
Hey, Diane, good to see ya.
as well as the Dead Sea Scrolls, even going back to the Colburn once again. And again, let me remind you, the Colburn is not, I do not consider that a Bible. I consider it just another source of information that we can take and glean from historical documentation. So let's keep that in mind as I share some of this information.
Hey, Tricky, good to see you, bro.
We are going to be starting with a biblical passage over in the book of Corinthians, and you're going to be looking at this in a way maybe you've never thought before, because I'm really wanting you to dig deep on this. In fact, even as I was finishing up with some studies to put this message together for you today, I even ran across.
You were just watching this. No coincidences with God, mate.
Library of Dead Sea Scrolls fragments, translations, etc., and of course the originals, so I can see and read it for myself. But I ran across something that has really, really, really made me start thinking a lot deeper in a lot of other different directions as well, and it has to do with Yam Suf, the Sea of Reeds that we read about from the Exodus account. And I can't help but wonder if that Exodus account is not a much greater battle than what we realize. Now, that ought to really make a lot of people think, right? In fact, I say that because I'll just read it to you. You're going to see it later in the broadcast here. It says, the officers of his chariots let me back up. You shall act against them and against the Pharaoh and the officers of his chariots in the Red Sea, the stricken spirits you will kindle like a flaming torch and a sheaf devouring wickedness. You want to talk about going deep? That made me go deep. I actually had to go read it in the Hebrew as well. I'm like, that's for another day. All right, let's get started here. Go right into here. I just real quick, I want to just share with you, those that do appreciate the work we do and want to support, you feel led of God to support the work we do. You can so by going to our website. You can click right there, donate online, or you can you can mail us to either Denun Institute, or like it says right above my head, there's Stephen Benoon, Bennun, at P.O. Box 156, Sunbright, Tennessee 37872. We want to thank you for that and your kindness to want to help us. We really appreciate it because you're the one that makes it possible, just to say the very least. Anyway, now I want you to think as we
it's going glary.
think a little bit outside the box, outside the norm of what we normally think about when we're reading what Paul writes here. And, I've read a lot of different writings. I've read writings as well that are attributed to Paul that are not mechanical. And yet, at the same time, if you look at his writings that are biblical, they just seem to dovetail together in a lot of areas. So it really gives us time and a pause to think deeply when we read this. So let's go carefully. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 35. But some men will say, how are the dead raised up, and what body do they come? Well, he says, you fool. Excuse me. That which you sow is not quickened, except it die. And that which you sow not that body that shall be but bear grain. And it may chance of wheat or of some other grain. I'm going to stop this for a second now. They're asking about what body do you come back up in after you die. And then he uses an analogy of planting a seed. And that what you sow, or that what you plant in the ground, and that what you sow, that body that shall be will bear grain, but it may chance of a wheat or some other grain. It could be that or something else. But God gives it a body as it hath pleased him.
Mm-hmm.
And to every seed his own body. All flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of fishes, and another of birds.
And reptiles.
There are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial. But the glory of the celestial is one, the glory of the terrestrial is another. Celestial being those things that are like a heavenly body, and terrestrial being an earthly body. There is one glory of the sun, another glory of the moon, and another glory of the stars, for one star differs from another star in glory. So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown in corruption, it is raised in incorruption.
Wow.
It is sown in dishonor, it is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power.
See, that's pretty telling.
Now, I find it fascinating that not only does he talk about different types of flesh, and we see that, one is of men, another is flesh of a beast, another of fish, another of birds. But could it be that he's alluding to, just like when he talks about the celestial bodies and terrestrial bodies, that we could possibly have other types of beings on this earth? Paul is the one that says wrestle not against flesh and blood,
but against principalities.
And I'm going to pull that up. I'm going to pull this up, and I'm going to do it under the search, and I'll tell you why. Some people, when you talk about the word archons, that just drives them nuts. Okay, let's see. And the reason being is because they think it's not a biblical term, but it is. It's a very biblical term. And let me just find the one I'm looking for. Because here we go, right here. Principalities, Ephesians 6. Okay. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. Let's click on that word principalities. It's arche. Archaea. All right. And archaea is the Greek word for archons. That's what you're fighting against.
Yep.
That's why Paul says you fight against principalities, against powers, exousia, against the rulers of darkness of this world, and against spiritual wickedness in high places. That's why he tells you to put on the full armor of God. So when we read over here, and we find out there are different types of bodies, even the celestial bodies and terrestrial bodies, he's letting you know not everything is the same. We can look at where Jesus says in Matthew 23, speaking of the Pharisees, when he says to them that they are, one, he says, you of your father the devil, but in another place he says that they were vipers, a seed of serpents, or a family of serpents. So we think about that as we continue on here. Now, let's see. I got to see how I got everything laid out because I forget. You're going to see this in the Dead Sea Scrolls later. Then shall Asher fall with the sword, not of a man, and not the sword of not of men shall devour him. It actually is using over here lo ish, which is not of man, and then it says lo adam. So there's two different words for the same thing, ish and adam. and he shall flee from the sword, and his young men shall become tributary. In what we read in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and what we read even in the judgments of the book of Amos, for example, and I don't know if I have the one up for Amos for that judgment or not. Yeah, here we go, right here. The way the judgment is described, that's coming, is very reminiscent of the destruction, even of during Noah's day. Shall not the day of the Lord be darkness and not light, even very dark, and no brightness in it? I despise your feast. I will take no delight in your solemn assemblies. Yea, though you offer me burnt offerings and your meal offerings, I will not accept them, neither will I regard the peace offerings of your fat beasts. Take you away from me the noise of your songs. Now I've got these highlighted differently. The feast, the songs, cool. Songs of David, in other words.
Sit down and relax,
and let me not hear the melody of thy
It should be interesting, this video.
But let justice well up as waters, and righteousness as a mighty stream. Did you bring unto me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness for 40 years, O house of Israel? So shall you take up Sukkot your king, and Chion your images, the star of your God, which you made to yourselves. The star of your God. You remember when Israel turned back, when they thought Moses was dead. This is where he's talking about offering up the sacrifices and things. They made the altar, and they served the god of Remphan. And that's where we first find out about this star. I believe that their worship was to the God that came on that planet that they call Planet X. I believe that's what they did. Like I said, even when I read over here in the war scroll here, this is about the war between the sons of darkness and the sons of light. I believe there's a lot more to the Exodus story than what we really realize. A lot more. Now, I said to you, though, that there was some things I highlighted in here intentionally because there's some things I want you to think about. Take you away from me the noise of thy songs, or your songs. Let me not hear the melody. There is a reason for that. Let me see if it's, I forget which one it is. Here we go right here. This is in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I do not have it marked which one it is. But if you looked it up by just
things to do.
Keywords here, you'd easily be able to find it. It's in column 27. First, they quote 2 Samuel 23:7. And the wood of the axe and with fire, they are completely burned on the place. Goes into a blank spot. And David, son of Jesse, was wise and a light like the light of the sun, and learned.
I like how he just spent 10 minutes setting it up with scripture. Now he's going to deliver the Planet X bit. He's a good researcher, isn't he, Tricky?
And discerning and perfect in all the paths before God and men. And we go to a blank spot. Yahweh gave him a discerning and enlightened spirit. And he wrote psalms. Watch this right here. 3,600. 3,600. And songs to be sung before the altar over the perpetual offering of every day. For all the days of the year, 364. Wow. Not 360 based on a lunar calendar, not 365 based on the Gregorian calendar, but 364.
Wow.
And for the Sabbath offerings, 52 songs. And for the offering of the first days of the month, and for all the days of the festivals, and for the Day of Atonement, 30 songs. And all the songs which he spoke were 646. And songs to perform over the possessed.
I didn't know that either till you just said that,
total was
Tricky.
4,000.
He's ex-CIA. I never knew that. There you go.
All these he spoke through the spirit of prophecy, watch this now, which had been given to him from before the Most High. I don't know if you realize this or not, but whether it be the Sabbath, whether it be the songs for every day of the year, that's songs for celestial events. How the Sabbaths fall. How, of course, days of the year, that'd be based on the sun, the rotation of the earth around, around the sun. 360 of those. And if that be the case there, then what about the 3,600 songs? The only thing that corresponds, and I actually was interesting, I actually ran across this on a website I found. 3,600 songs that he wrote. The only thing that corresponds with that celestial is the passing of planet X. It is believed that it passes here every 3,600 years.
Wow.
Think about it. Now, then we look at what the scripture says here over in, where am I at? Amos chapter 5. And he says, take you away from me the noise of your songs. And let me not hear the melody. And it just so happens to be that is at a time where, woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord, wherefore would you have the day of the Lord? It is darkness and not light. As if a man did flee from a lion and a bear met him and went into the house and he leaned his hand on the wall and a serpent bit him. Boy, that's interesting, isn't it? A serpent bites him. Hanachash. Not just any serpent. That Hanachash is the same serpent that was in the Garden of Eden. It's like there's no escape. Shall not the day of the Lord be darkness and not light, even
Yeah, Tree, it was a good night. They went home about an hour and a half ago. Thank you for asking. It was a good night.
dark and no brightness in it? I hate and despise your feast. I will take no delight in your solemn assemblies. Yes, though you offer to me burnt offerings and your meal offering, I will not accept them. Neither will I regard the peace offering of your fat beast. Take you away from me the noise of your songs. They've been singing these things for all those years. David did it by inspiration, prophetically. Those songs were written. I actually did have one up too.
Wonder what the tunes are like with
I don't
these
think this is the one I'm
psalms.
thinking of. Let me just look and see though. Yeah, this is one right here. Here we go. And at the brightness before him, there passed through his thick clouds, hailstones and coals of fire. The Lord also thundered in the heavens, and the Most High gave forth his voice, hailstones, coals of fire. He sent out his arrows and scattered them, and he shot forth lightnings and discomfited them. And the channels of waters appeared, and the foundation of the world were laid bare. At thy rebuke, O Lord, the blast of the breath of thy nostrils, he sent from on high. He took me, he drew me out of many waters. He delivered me from mine enemy most strong, and from them that hated me, for they were too mighty for me.
Wow.
That's kind of, David was faced with a very similar situation we are. There's an enemy on this earth. There are demonic entities on here too strong for us. And actually, oh gosh, I forgot to back it up. Let's back it up some more here. This is interesting. In my distress, I called upon the Lord and cried out unto my God, and out of his temple he heard my voice. My cry came before him unto his ears. Then the earth did shake and quake, and the foundations also, the mountains did tremble. They were shaken because he was wroth, or he was angry.
Wow.
Smoke arose up in his nostrils, and fire out of his mouth did devour. Coals flamed forth from him. He bowed the heavens also, and came down, and thick darkness was under his feet. He rode upon a cherub and did fly, yea, he did swoop down upon the wings of the wind. But that'll make your brain start doing some serious thinking, won't it? He made darkness his hiding place, his pavilion around about him, darkness of waters, thick clouds of the skies. I wonder how many people really begin to examine the Word of God at this point. At the brightness before him, there were passed through his thick clouds, hailstones, and coals of fire. Like I said, it reminds me of what happened not only during the days of Noah, but even in the days of the Exodus. I want to take you, this is going to be, like I said, we're going to probably hit, I think this is the Colburn here. Yes, I believe this is the Colburn. Now, when I tell you, as I said to you, and I want to remind you, do not take the Colburn as a Bible, please. I ask you, don't do that. I use, we are a research institute. We research old documents. Does not mean that I endorse them. We use it for research purposes. All right. This only gives us a historical view from a different point of view. Does it mean it's perfectly accurate? No, doesn't mean it's perfectly accurate by no means. But it's just like you can take in every civilization on this earth that there is, they have historical documentation of the flood. They all have a different perspective on how that flood happened, but they all have documentation that the flood happened on this earth. So if I take and I read from one of those documents about what happened during the flood, it doesn't mean that I endorse that document, but it means that we're using it for historical reference. That's what we're doing here. GLN 424, then with the dawning, men saw an awesome sight. There riding on a great black rolling cloud came the destroyer.
Wow.
Newly released from the confines of the sky vaults. Notice how it reads that there, newly released from the confines of the sky vaults. That reminds me, and I don't have it up here, but I'm going to pull it up. That reminds me of Revelation chapter 9 to some degree. I think we're looking at the sixth seal here. Let's see here.
Not the one before it.
Well, no, it's right. Let's just write it. At the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth. And to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. So we know it's an individual. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the bottomless pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power. The scorpions, the earth, have power. It was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but they should torment for 5 months, and their torment was the torment of a scorpion when they strike at the man. All right, now, see if there's something else I wanted to get in here. Well, if we get into the horsemen, that's a little different. Out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. By these three was a third part of men killed, and by the fire and the smoke and the brimstone which issued out of their mouths, for their power is in their mouth and their tails were like unto serpents, and had heads, with them they do hurt. I'm going to put some just pieces together here for you to think about. That's really what it's my objective right now, is things for you to think about. I don't say that I give you the answer to it. I just want you to think about it. So we go back, and this one here is in the Colburn, the confines of the sky vaults. You know, in a way, it kind of reminds me too of Satan being
wow, that is pretty interesting.
Was pit being open, him coming out.
Wow.
And she raged about the heavens, for it was her day of judgment. The beast with her opened its mouth and belched forth fire, hot stones, and vile smoke. It covered the whole sky above and the meeting place of earth, and heaven could no longer be seen. And in the evening, the places of the stars were changed. They rolled across the sky to new stations. Then the flood waters came.
Wow.
You see, one of the ways they know that
Planet X puts them out of orbit. Oh man, this guy's done his research.
This binary system is coming is things begin to move out of their place.
Yep.
And I do believe that CERN, the multiple ones we have on the earth, are what are going to be the key that opens that bottomless pit.
100%, I agree. 100%.
Now, mind you, I'm not saying that God can't use anything to bring judgment upon this earth. So just think about it. The floodgates of heaven were open, and the foundations of earth were broken apart. The surrounding waters poured over the land and broke upon the mountains. The storehouses of the winds burst their bolts asunder, so storms and whirlwinds were loosed to hurl themselves upon the earth. In the seething waters and howling gales, all buildings were destroyed. Trees were uprooted and mountains cast down. Notice the howling gales, the winds. I've been telling you, 2 years? We're going to have hypercanes. Now Mike comes out recently and also said the same thing. They're going to have hypercanes. That's what's coming. Hurricanes that are so massive in size, and the winds 200 miles an hour plus. That's not to say we haven't had that type of storm before, not maybe in size that, from what Mike describes, that they'd cover the entire United States, it'll be so big. But Hurricane Camille, like I said many times, I remember it as a little boy. I can still remember.
I love M&Ms.
That we had were so deep, we were swimming in the front yard. I think that was around 1969, I want to say, something to that effect there. I just remember because I know we still lived in our house on Petunia Street, and I think my mother moved away from there when I was either 5 or 6 years old. So I had to have been right around that time. I was born in 64, so either 1969 or 1970. When he goes on to say there, the howling gales, all buildings were destroyed, trees were uprooted, and the mountains cast down. There was a time of great heat, then came a time of bitter cold. What do we tell you about that, too? We've been telling you now a couple of years, I guess, as well. Maybe not quite a couple of years on that. I think that's been about a year and a half, maybe a year, where we said it's going to be hot when it should be cold, and it's going to be cold when it should be hot. And we actually spoke about that before the situation happened in Texas, where they had that freeze, untimely, unseasonable freeze. And it's interesting, too, and we haven't, the system hasn't got here fully yet, by no means. This is like way, way, way outer type stuff we're being affected by. But I know the Terry, he runs the hardware store not far from where I'm at. And he told me, he said about the inline winds we've been having here in Tennessee. He said, Steve, he says, I've been here my whole life. He said, I have never seen inline winds that strong. And we only seen, I think, about 60. I think one time before, though, I think we had about 70 mile an hour winds at one storm that I was here with. but it's 65 miles an hour is what they were having here. I'm thinking to myself, you have no idea, Terry, they're going to be over 100 miles an hour. So yeah, do what you can to batten things down. And look, I will tell you something. What I'm sharing with you now, I do not live in a fear. I don't live in a panic or anything like that. I try to use a little bit of wisdom. Wherever you live at, won't make any difference. Stay where you are, but do what you can do. You know, just like if you're on the coastline, prepare for the worst hurricane. In other words, make sure you got food and water for a little over a month's time. Just saying, you know, to have for a
I've got
little over a
plenty of
month's time.
food.
That would be my thought. I don't believe in stockpiling hordes and hordes. I mean, we have done a lot of stockpiling. A lot of it just goes bad because you get so backed up you don't rotate properly, and if you don't get it all milered in time where it'll last longer, then it goes to waste. And I hate that. So I've tried to be a little bit more reasonable about the way we do things. Live your life as everything's okay, but just make some precautionary measures so if things were to get bad, you're protected. That's why I do the EMP shield as well. I have it on the car, and I got one for the house, and I know I need to get it put on the house, but it's a little bit more in detail for me to do than I'm comfortable with doing. So I really need to have an electrician do it. I feel safer that way, but I think it's an awesome investment. And after we visited with the company there, now I know it's a good investment. So that's for a lot of different reasons. And that's not even dealing with this system. There's writings in, there's one, and again, I do not consider these things biblical, so you've got to keep that in mind. But if you look at Nag Hammadi, there was one writing in there, it clearly seems to be talking about Planet X coming through, but it talks about the kings of the earth become drunken and they just want to war with one another. That's where we are right now. And that's before all this crazy stuff happens. All right, so let's continue on. Now, and I got a lot of stuff. Even what you're seeing popping up at the bottom of the screen is not nearly as much as I do have that I want to share with you. So let me just look and see where we're at here. We are in the Dead Sea Scrolls now. Okay, yeah, this is one here, and we're in 4Q 428.
Good night, boss. Good to see you, mate.
Okay. This I find extremely fascinating fragment. And I have to say the same thing with the Dead Sea Scrolls as I say with the Colburn or any other book. A lot of these are commentaries that are written. It does not make it biblical. Although they will cite biblical passages, they will give their interpretation. It doesn't make their interpretation correct. But it gives us a perspective that they looked at that we maybe have not thought about before. That's why I want to bring this out. Okay, so let's look at it. Your mouth, I'm starting up here. I don't know if you can see the mouse here, but I'm starting right there. Your mouth and you have freed me from blank and from blank. Now my soul blank. They have considered me and have set my soul like a boat in the depths of the sea, like a fortified city positioned opposite its enemies. I was in distress like a woman giving birth the first time when her labor pains come on her. And pains racks the mouth of her womb to begin the birth of the crucible of the pregnant woman, for children come through the breakers of death. And the woman expectant with a boy is racked by her pains, for through the breakers of death she gives birth to a male. Through the pains of Sheol there emerges from the crucible of the pregnant woman a wonderful counselor with his strength, and the boy is freed from the breakers. Now, I think what I have highlighted here in yellow could very well be very prophetic, speaking of Jesus Christ, a wonderful counselor. I think that's Isaiah, was that Isaiah 9:6? Shelley Yoetz. which is a wonderful counselor. El Gibor, mighty God. In the woman expectant with him rush all the contractions and the raking pain at their birth. Now notice that, at their birth. Terror seizes those expectant with them, and at his birth all the labor pains come suddenly. In the crucible, the pregnant woman. Now, the next part here highlighted is going to switch. It's going to literally change women. And that's what you need to pay close attention to. And she who is pregnant with a serpent is with raking pain. Now, one woman gives birth to a wonderful counselor. Now we have one that is pregnant with a serpent.
True.
Could the fallen angels be reptilian? So when we think, and I say this, for example, if you think about Eve in the Garden of Eden, and the serpent comes up to her, he's cursed to go on his belly. So he wasn't on his belly to start
Okay,
with.
it's not clear. Hang on, guys.
Acting upright. Or at least he'd have legs.
Get the focus back.
So the question is, and this was actually, I actually got asked this. I was told that there are those in some of the intel circles that study the ancient documents that have wondered whether or not the serpent actually was one of the reptilian aliens that we have here on the earth. And as I've said to them, I mean, I don't know. I said, but I guess anything's possible. But watch what it says here, though. This is fascinating, especially in light of the fact. All right, and let's just quickly go to. I need to pull this up for the sake of. I'm going to use the Hebrew Matthew, and mainly because it just carries a bit more of the. It gives you a little bit better verbiage. It's really no different than our Matthew, but I just like the fact of the way it words it here, and the fact that you get to see it in Hebrew as well. Let's take it. Let's go over here. We're going to Matthew 23 and around verse 36, I believe it is. 33, actually. All right. And right here, Nachashim, Zara, Sufanim, Echa, okay? He says, serpents, seed of vipers, how you escape the judgment of Gehenna if you do not return in repentance. All right? So it doesn't mean now that the Pharisees were so messed up that they could not repent. He just asked the question, how will you escape that judgment if you don't repent? But he calls them. Wow. And who's he talking to? He's talking to the Pharisees. Woe to you, sages and Pharisees, hypocrites, who are like whited sepulchres, which appear on the outside to be beautiful to men, but on the inside are full of bones of the dead and filth. Wow. Thus you appear on the outside to be righteous to men, but within you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness. Woe to you, hypocrites, Pharisees, sages, because you build the tombs of the prophets and glorify the monuments of the righteous. You say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have permitted them to put the prophets to death. In this you bear witness against yourselves that you are the sons of those who killed the prophets. You behave according to the deeds of your fathers. Now, he's actually calling their fathers serpents, seed of vipers. How you escape the judgment of Gehenna if you do not turn repentance. So why is it that they can repent, but maybe the fathers could not? It's because they're in a mingled seed to begin with. Interestingly enough, their mothers would have been righteous women, just like it was in the days of Noah. Remember the women there in Genesis 6. When we read about that, the fallen angels coming to them, we get this more in the book of Enoch than anything, but they come to them and they persuade them to sleep with them. Actually, in one of the non-canonical documents, it said that the first time they never would do it, but when they come the second time to them, they appeared as if they were their husbands. They could shapeshift. They could transform themselves to make themselves appear to be something they were not. That's how they fell for it. But he says, you behave according to the deeds of your fathers, serpents, seed of vipers. We don't have time to go back to it now, but you already know where that is. That's over.
Hey, Talia, good to see you.
Don't forget. Let me just make sure. This is for your guys' sake. Where was that at? That's. Oh gosh.
No.
Which book was that in? Proverbs, Daniel, Nehemiah, Ezra 9. And maybe we'll just do it for the sake of those that may be the first time here. Now, when these things were done, right, the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the peoples of the lands, doing according to their abominations. Even the Canaanites, Hittites, Perizzites, Jebusites, Ammonites, Moabites, Egyptians, and the Amorites, which, by the way, these are the ones that were living in the land of what we call Israel today. And they had mingled their seed with what? The giants. Well, we knew they had mingled their seed, but they were giants in the land, if you remember. I remember David had to kill, Goliath, etc., right? Where they have taken of their daughters for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the peoples of the lands. There it is right there. The holy seed mingled themselves with the peoples of the land. And that's why you have seed of vipers.
Literally vipers.
That
Wow.
may be what came down during the days of Noah, the fallen angels, because you got to remember, don't be even surprised. Of course, the fallen angels, maybe they didn't look reptilian in the beginning. Who knows? Maybe they look handsome. We don't know the answer to that. But I wouldn't be surprised even if they did look like an animal, because, my gosh, how many times we're reading the Bible ourselves, like in the case of the angel that comes down, he's got 4 heads, and one's the head of a man, one's the head of a lion, one's the head of an eagle, one's the head of, you see what I'm saying? Beastly heads. So would it be strange to think something like that? Not necessarily.
No, not at all.
We don't know the answer to that. So, at any rate, gosh, don't want to get too far gone on all these things here. That's a different Dead Sea Scroll fragment. Where were we at, though, guys? I think this where, here we are, right here. So anyway, we come back to the Dead Sea Scroll here. I done forgot where we were at. So, all right. Oh, yeah, no, we were actually reading I know where we were at now. Thank you for whoever said that on the screen. I know how it is, right? See, no, I didn't hear you either. I'm just messing around with you right now. But you know how it is. You watch the TV and something's going to happen. You're trying to warn the guy on the TV, but, the thing's already acted out, so he doesn't know anything, right? But you can't but think somebody probably out there listening, no, brother, you were reading from the book of Matthew. Go back to that one. Okay. No, it just popped to my head, so I know now. Anyway, seed of vipers, how will you escape the judgment of Gehenna? All right. So we got that part there. Now we can jump back over. It was actually right here where we were at. All right. So she who is pregnant with a serpent is with raking pain. And the breakers of the pit result in the deeds of terror. Now, this is going to get interesting. I promise you it's going to get interesting, because you're going to find out there's more than one of these descendants. That's what Jesus is alluding to. The foundations of the wall shake like a ship on the surface of the sea, and the clouds of thunder with a roar. Those who live on the dust as well as those who sail upon the sea are terrified by the din of the water. For them, they're wise men and all like sailors on the deeps. For swallowed up is all their wisdom by the roar of the seas. When the deeps boil over the springs of water, they rush forth to form huge waves and breakers of water with clamorous sound. And when they rush forth, Sheol and Abaddon open. We got a Planet X type of event taking place. And we're seeing, almost like 2 boys being born, one a deliverer for our soul. And I can't say for sure that that wonderful counselor is truly Jesus. I don't know. I really honestly do not know. But that other one, the woman is pregnant with the serpent, right? Watch this. So open all the arrows of the pit. Make their voice heard while going down to the abyss. And the gates of Sheol open for all the deeds of the serpent. And the doors of arrows, okay, here we go. And the doors of the pit close upon the one expectant with injustice, and everlasting bolts upon all the spirits of the serpent. That's one reason why I have suspected the fallen angels to be like that. The pit closes upon the one expectant with injustice, and everlasting bolts upon all the spirits of the serpent. I thank you, Lord, because you saved my life from the pit and from Sheol and Abaddon, and have lifted me up on an everlasting height, so that I can walk on the boundless plain. You know, Jesus, and we get this over and over and over in the New Testament, Paul's writings especially, but Jesus said that we would tread the heads. Let's look it up. Let's just look it up. Tread heads. Let's just do it that way there. Maybe it's singular. And I probably spelled the word tread on the heads wrong. Head. So let me take that out. There we go. Revelation 9:19. For their power is in their... Oh, that's not the one I wanted either. Hang on. It's where he said, I've given you power. Power 2. Let's try it that way there.
To tread on serpents.
And hang on. We'll find it here in 1 second, guys. Even we have to pause the video. Just read the word tread. Maybe that's the way. I gotta look it up here. Here we go, right here. Luke 10:19.
Yep.
Let's go to verse 17. And the 70 returned again with joy, saying, Lord, even the devils are subject unto us through your name. And he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Notwithstanding in this, rejoice not that the spirits are subject unto you, but rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven. If you're walking on the head, then he's imprisoned, is where he's at. But the question is, he got imprisoned. He was thrown out from heaven down to this earth. Jesus saw that happen. He dealt with it when he was here. He was here when Jesus was here, Satan was here. Somewhere along the way, though, he got locked up. Because you're able to tread on the head of serpents. All right, so wish that was in Matthew so I could look it up that way. Let's come back. Let's see which one we were at here. I think it's this one here. Yeah, okay, so we finished that up there, the doors of the injustice. Now, this is another one here from 1QH. I'm going to start up here at verse 27. When all the arrows of the pit fly without return and are shot without hope. When the measuring line falls upon judgment, the lot of anger on the forsaken of the outpouring of wrath against the hypocrites, and the period of anger against any Belial, the ropes of death enclosed with no escape, Then the torrents of Belial will overflow the high banks like a devouring fire in their watering channels, destroying every tree green or dry from their canals. It roams with flames of fire until none of those who drink are left. It consumes the foundations of clay and the tracts of dry land. The bases of the mountains does he burn, and converts the roots of flint rock into streams of lava.
Wow.
It consumes right to the great deep. The torrents of Belial break into abandon. The schemers of the deep howl of the den of those extracting mud. The earth cries out at the calamity which overtakes the world, and all the schemers scream, and all who are upon it go crazy. Talk about a Planet X type scenario, right? And melt away the great calamity, for God will thunder with the roar of his strength, and his holy residence echoes the truth of his glory, and the host of heavens adds to their noise, and the eternal foundation. Let me see if I have another one. Yeah. Foundations melt and shake, and the battle of heavenly heroes roams unceasingly over the earth until the determined, eternal, unparalleled destruction. I give you thanks, O Lord, for you have a massive rampart for me. All destroyers, and all you hide me from the turbulent calamities. Friends, you want to talk about a Planet X scenario. There is no doubt we're in that time frame. Now I'm going to share with you now. This is from the the Colburn document. And again, please hold in your mind, this is not a biblical document, but we want to glean from this from historical writing. And I'm going to read to this one here because it talks about what had happened. They called it the destroyer, and what's coming.
Wow.
Men forget the days of the destroyer. Only the wise know where it went, and that it will return at its appointed hour. That in itself, right there, that first part right there. Wise know where it went.
Guys, where's he getting this info? Did he say where this come from? Because it's not from the Bible, but this guy trusts the Bible completely. So did he say where these verses came from? I might have missed it.
And when it will return in its appointed hour. If you remember when we first came down here, David, let's see, where was it at? Let's see, right here. Yeah, here we go. David, and can I blow this up? Let me try. Okay, no, I actually never saved it, is what it was. Okay. Son of Jesse was wise and light like the light of the sun, and learned and discerning, perfect in all his paths before God and men. So in the
Hey Barry, good to see you, mate.
The wise knew, and he wrote what? 3,600 songs. And when he did the ones for the days of the year, for all the days of the year, he actually said for all the days of the year, 364. And for the Sabbath offerings, 52. That's the, if I remember right, and I may be wrong on this, but if I remember right, that would be the times that how the moon comes into a full moon each month, right? Or something like that, or maybe the cycle of it, because you have 52 weeks in a year, right? So there you have right there 50. What was it? 52? Is that what it said? Yeah, 52. There's 52 weeks in a year. It's just fascinating that he's doing this based on celestial events, but they don't say why the 3,600. I believe David knew why, did it? He wouldn't have done it if he didn't. We'll have to see all those. And I know in the Dead Sea Scrolls, we do have, I think you have a little over 100 and something songs in the Bible, but we actually have in the Dead Sea Scrolls the 364 songs.
Wow. Really triple.
Could you imagine what he wrote in those other ones, though?
Yeah.
No doubt be something about this binary system.
100%.
So now I gotta go back and find where I was at. Okay, here we go. Back to here we go.
Yeah.
So it says here, men forget the days of the destroyer. Only the wise know where it went and that it will return at the appointed hour. David wrote 3,600. He must have known 3,600 years later it's going to come. It raged across the heaven in the days of wrath, and this was its likeness. It was a billowing cloud of smoke enwrapped in a ruddy glow, not distinguishable in joint or limb. Its mouth was an abyss from which came flame, smoke, and hot cinders. When ages pass, certain laws operate upon the stars in the heavens. Their ways change. There is movement and restlessness. There are no longer constant, and great lights appear redly in the skies. When blood drops upon the earth, the destroyer will appear, and mountains will open up and belch forth fire and ash. Trees will be destroyed, and living things engulfed. Waters will be swallowed up by the land, and the seas will boil. These are just things that are going to happen before it gets here. The heavens will burn brightly and redly. There will be a copper hue over the face of the land, followed by a day of darkness. A new moon will appear and break up and fall. The people will scatter in madness. They will hear the trumpet and battle cry of the destroyer and will seek refuge within dens of the earth. They're already doing it. They're getting ready for it now. Terror will eat away their hearts, and their courage will flow from them like water from a broken pitcher. They will be eaten up in the flames of wrath and consumed by the death of the destroyer. Thus it was in the days of the heavenly wrath which have gone, and thus it will be in the days of doom when it comes again. The times of its coming and going are known unto the wise. These are the signs of the time which shall precede the destroyer's return. 110 generations shall pass into this west, and nations will rise and fall. Men will fly in the air as birds and swim in the sea as fishes. Men will talk peace one with another. Hypocrisy and deceit shall have their day. They're already flying in the air like birds and in the fish swim like that. You know, you got submarines and airplanes. And they already talk about peace, and it is all hypocrisy. Women will be as men and men as women. Yeah, look at what they're doing right now in the schools. Think about it. I won't go into it, just think about it. Women will be as men and men as women. Passion will be a plaything of men. And that's exactly what that's become to. Perversions. Unbelievable perversions. A nation of soothsayers shall rise and fall. Their tongue shall be the speech learned. A nation of lawgivers shall rule the earth and pass away into nothingness. I can't help but think there, that nation of lawgivers shall rule the earth and pass away into nothingness. Maybe that will be when they force these Noahide laws. They get away with it for a little bit of time, but then it'll go into nothingness. One worship will pass into the four quarters of the earth, talking peace and bringing war. A nation of the seas will be greater than any other, but will be as an apple rotten at the core and will not endure. A nation of traitors will destroy men and wonders, and it shall have its day. Then shall the high strive with the low, and the north with the south, and the west, and with the east with the west, and the light with the darkness, and men shall be divided by their.
And tricky, where it says men will be as women and women as men, never before in Western civilization has that happened, where the gay agenda's pushed on everyone so much. So that's only been in the last 10, 20 years. So yeah, we are definitely in them days.
Races, and the children will be born as strangers among them. Brothers shall strive with brother, husband with wife. Fathers will no longer instruct their sons, and their sons will be wayward. Women will become the common property of men and will no longer be held in regard and respect.
Wow.
Then men will be ill at ease in their heart. They will seek they know not what. Uncertainty and doubt will trouble them. They will possess great riches, but poor in spirit. Then will heavens tremble and the earth move. Men will quake in fear. And while the terror walks with them, the heralds of doom will appear. They will come softly as thieves to the tombs. Men will not know them for what they are. Men will be deceived. The hour of the destroyer is at hand. In those days, men will have the great book before them. Wisdom will be revealed. The few will be gathered for the stand. It is the hour of trial. The dauntless ones will survive. The stout-hearted will not go down to destruction.
Yeah.
Great God of all ages alike, to all who sets the trials of man, be merciful to our children in the days of doom. Man must suffer to be great, but hasten not his progress unduly in the great winnowing. Be not too harsh on the lesser ones among them. Even the son of thieves has become your scribe. And I'll just kind of end it with that right there, not ending the video itself here, but just going into that issue there. Let me see what else we had up here. The book of Numbers also. That's where we'd actually quoted the scripture from the Dead Sea Scrolls already. Behold him, but not nigh. There shall step forth a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite through the corners of Moab and break down all the sons of Seth. You know, I can't help but wonder about this here. You remember how they said they set up that star of Remphan after, when Moses didn't come back down off the mountain. And even when the wise men came from the east following the star, looking for the birth of Jesus, Herod was really curious about that star. Now, we know that was a godly sign about Jesus, but the question remains, though, could it be that Herod was curious because he was thinking of the star of Remphan? Don't know the answer to that, but it is something worth considering. Okay, in the book of Acts, and here it is, it's where somebody Remphan. Then God turned and gave them up to worship the host of heaven, as it is written in the book of the prophets, O you house of Israel, have you offered to me slain beasts and sacrifices by the space of 40 years in the wilderness? Yea, you took up the tabernacle of Molech and the star of your god Remphan, figures which you made to worship them.
Wow.
And I will carry you away beyond Babylon. I think there was a lot more to what happened in Egypt than what we realize. And I do believe it was a showdown. Without a doubt, I believe it was a showdown for sure. And this is where I was talking about as far as Herod. And when he had privately called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search diligently for the young child. And when you have found him, bring me word again that I may come and worship him also. And we know that was just, being a little sneaky devil. But he may have been concerned that star was what was written about the time of the Exodus and the time of Noah's day. And it may have set fear in his mind when he heard about that. That's just a conjecture. I don't know if that is really the case. Now, let's see here. I want to take one moment. 1QM 10 and 11.
Couldn't.
Open the ears hearing profound things. You created the dome of the sky, the army of the luminaries, the task of the spirits, the dominion of the holy ones, the treasures of glory. In the darkness of the clouds, you are creator of the
Yeah, I've
earth,
heard that.
of the laws, of its divisions, and the deserts and steep, of all its products with fruits, of the circle of the seas, the reservoirs of the rivers, of the chasm of the abyss, of the beasts and birds of man's image, of the generations of confusion of tongues and the separation of nations. Remember the Tower of Babel, right? Of the dwellings of the clans, the inheritance of the lands, of the sacred season, the cycle of the years, the ages of eternity. We have known this through your knowledge, which your ear to our cry. Okay. For the battle is yours. With the might of your hand, the corpses have been torn to pieces with no one to bury them. Goliath from Gath, gallant, giant, You delivered into the hands of David, your servant, for he trusted in your powerful name and not in a sword or a spear. For the battle is yours. The Philistines you humiliated many times for your holy name by the hand of our kings. Besides, you saved us many times thanks to your mercy, not of our own deeds by which we did wrong, nor by the sinful actions, for the battle is yours. And it is from you that the powers come, and not from our own being. It is not our might, nor the power of our own hands, which performs these marvels, except by your great strength and by your mighty deeds. Thus you taught us from ancient times, saying, he quotes the books of Numbers, chapter 24, a star will depart from Jacob, a scepter will be raised in Israel, will smash the temples of Moab, it will destroy all the sons of Seth. Now that I wondered about, because Seth was the righteous seed that replaces Abel. It will come down from Jacob. It will exterminate the remnant of the city. The enemy will be its possessions, and Israel will perform feats by the hand of your anointed ones. Seers of decrees you taught as the times of wars of your hands, to fight to be glorious over our enemies, to fell the hordes of Belial, the seven peoples of the futility by the hand of the poor, those you saved with strength and success towards the wonderful power, that the melting heart became a door to hope. You shall treat them like Pharaoh, like the officers of his chariots in the Red Sea. The stricken of the Spirit you shall set aflame, like a torch of fire and straw, devouring wickedness without ceasing until the sin be consumed. From old you foretold us the appointed time of the power of your hand against the Kittim, saying, Ashur will fall by sword of not a man. The sword of not a human being will devour it. For you will deliver into the hands of the poor the enemies of the countries, in the hand of his prone, the dust, in order to fell powerful ones of the nations. To return the reward of sin, their guilty heads, to pronounce the justice, your truth, judgment, every son of man, to make every lasting name for yourself among the people, the wars, in order to show yourself great and holy in the eyes of the remainder of this people, of the peoples. Now, I want to bring out something here for you, and this is what I want to show. See, the sin of their guilty heads, to pronounce the justice of your truthful justice on every son of man. Wait, that's not the one. Where it was? Where was it? Hang on. Okay, delivered into the hands of the poor, okay, enemies, countries, in the hand of those prone to the dust. Okay, to fell the powerful ones of the nations. Now, let me see if I can find it real quick for you. The nations and blood of darkness shall battle together God's might between the roar of huge multitude and the shouts of gods and men of the day of calamity. It will be a time of suffering for all the nations redeemed of God. Of all their sufferings, none will be like this, hastening till eternal redemption is fulfilled. On the day of their war, three will gird themselves, strengthening the heart of the sons of light, and in the seventh lot, God's great hand will subdue Belial and the angels of his dominion, and all the truth for the destruction of the sons of darkness. See, this was another one here where it clearly shows this end coming. And what I'm wanting to show you, we have a place here where it talks about the kings of the earth, and that the spirits that they have, that literally the serpents of these kings are upon the work of the iniquity of the sons of truth, favorable. Let's see. Here we go, right here. This is the one I wanted to show you, and we'll close with this one right here. There's so much more that could be said, but there's maybe not. Let me just double check before we do close. From the people have rebelled with insolence.
Diane, they were mosquito larvae, wasn't they? I remember sea monkeys.
Walking on the paths of the wicked ones. In the path of the wicked ones, about whom God says in Deuteronomy 32:33, their wine is serpent's venom and cruel poison asp. The serpents are the kings of the peoples, and their wine is their paths, and the asp poison is the head of the kings of Greece. So, it's funny they say that, because a lot of people say about Queen Elizabeth that she was a reptilian shapeshifter. And I thought that was kind of interesting to actually read that. At any rate, I want to thank you guys for being here with us today. Lengthy, a little bit of a lengthy message here, but I really hope it's a blessing for you and that it'll be a benefit in some way, and that take you a little bit deeper into the things that are anticipated to come. You know, one of the things that I've said before to you is that this, I was told that this thing travels in the ether, and even the aspect of CERN being used to tap into the ether because of the power that is there, I believe is what opens that portal. It opens that gateway. Believe it or not, there's actually the verbiage that is used like that in the Dead Sea Scrolls, that it is a portal that is used that allows the chariots of God to be able to travel back and forth. In other words, an opening in that dimension. So if, for example, Satan returns and let's say he's the one coming on here, or however this battle is supposed to transpire, clearly something's going to open up and let this thing in, and it's going to bring about chaos and mayhem. People, as we read earlier, they're going to go crazy. They're already starting to go crazy. I mean, you got people, I see videos being posted on Twitter, you know, just going up and punching people right broad daylight, right in the middle of a mall and in a convenience store, just anywhere. People are losing their minds already. And I think that has a lot to do with more entities being able to put thoughts in people's minds. As you know, many of the thoughts that come to your head are not your own.
That's true.
And this may be affected because of what man is doing that's allowing all this to happen. And even though it is a cycle of, say, 3,600 years, there's still those that know when it's coming. And even if it is on another side of another dimension, when you open that dimension up, then it's here. So let's pray for one another. Let's keep those things in mind. Pray for those that you love. Don't let every thought that comes to your head control you and rule you. Take control of your thoughts. And because we're in a very serious hour, friends. Again, thank you for your support.
Okay, I'll stick with Israeli news today, guys. That was pretty interesting. Let's see his take on the two witnesses in the temple. Yeah, do this one first. Actually, this is going to include that. So I'll do this one.
A moment of your time and ask you to stand with us in support of this ministry, this prophetic news broadcast. We need your help more than ever. You could go to our websites.
Diane, there's a double spread page on the mass shootings in America in the last month. There's something like, how many did it say? I can't remember how many. Something like about 19 or 20 mass shootings just in the last month, and there was a big write-up in our newspapers. Very worrying. It looks like the wild, wild west over there. It really does.
Either IsraeliNewsLive.org or IsraelReturns.com. On IsraelReturns.com under contact, we also have our mailing address where you can mail a check to us in Europe if you so desire, if the Lord leads you. Or you can give.
And apparently Texas has had a large number of shootings.
Really online, either website, under donation, you can find a link there. We thank you for your support, and God bless you for standing with us here at Israeli News Live. Shalom. Erev Tov Covering, I'm Stephen Benin. You're watching Israeli News Live. special segment broadcast this evening on how close are we until the end. We've been watching the news broadcasts that have been happening around the world, seeing the wars and rumors of wars. We've seen all types of prophecies that are being fulfilled by the Pope of Rome, the Vatican, etc. And of course, the great question on many people's minds are, how close are we to the end?
Yeah.
I have a feeling we're extremely close. And in tonight's broadcast, I will be looking at the ministry of the two witnesses, mainly because...
And Diane, it'll be the wild, wild west if we run out of food. That'll be for all all countries, actually. Yeah, we know that's gonna happen. That's gonna be really bad when it does.
The scriptural basis for the two witnesses that tells us how close we are to the end.
Yeah.
So I trust that the broadcast will be a blessing. I do know that maybe there are some that tune in for news only, and therefore it may not be as enriching for you, but I am sure for those of you that have followed this ministry for years, this news broadcast is definitely going to be an exciting next hour or so here that we spend together. We go right on into Matthew chapter 24, verses 5 through 8. This is the very famous particular scripture of Matthew that Yeshua himself, Jesus himself, actually speaks about the ending of time and the things that we would look for, what we would expect to happen as the time came to an end. He says here, for me...
Oh, it's 7 years ago. It's pretty old. Yeah. Let me see if I can find something more newer.
He shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of war. See that you be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. So I'd have to say, friend, we are definitely in the beginning of sorrows, to say the very least, of the hour we're living in. As he said right there just a moment ago, in the scripture says, many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ. I am the Christ, the anointed one. This picture here, we took ourselves in.
Okay, that's 7 years old, yeah. How old is this one? Hang on. This is only 2 weeks old. It's about Planet X, so I might as well keep it on the Planet X theme because it's still Israeli News Live.
Supporting and giving to this ministry.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, friends. Stephen Benoon with Israeli News Live. And, my desire was to get into a teaching on the spirits and the attacks that are going on. And so I'm still going to have to do that video. But the more I began to prepare for tonight's broadcast, the more that I realized it's still going to get into a teaching, but we're going to be looking at some different documents tonight, including the Dead Sea Scrolls. We'll be looking at the Qumran, and although I know it is called the Qumran Bible, as I've said before, I don't like to use that terminology because to me it's not the Bible. It is the document of the Qumran, and it does have some very interesting historical documentation about Planet X. I need to get into that because in the Dead Sea Scrolls, you're going to find out their interpretation of some of the passages in the Bible clearly indicate the passing of Planet X. And I ran across that as I was preparing tonight, which definitely took me down a different direction. Makes me think of Malachi 3 as well, the earth burning like a fire and the judgment of God, etc. going on. Revelation chapter 9, the star, of course, falling from heaven there, which we know is actually some kind of person because it refers to him in a him, a personal pronoun. And then, of course, you get here on BNO News, meteorite explodes over Israel and the West Bank. Now, I know this has nothing to do with that star coming down.
Okay, Talia, even though it's 7 years old, why I didn't play it? Because the 7 years ago, he's talking about the temple, but the temple's actually been constructed already. It's like a Lego set. They just got to put it together. So he wouldn't know that. So that's why I stopped it, because the 7 years was just too long ago. This is only 2 weeks ago, so it's pretty relevant.
I just thought it was kind of fitting that here I am preparing the message for today, and I get the meteorite explodes over Israel and the West Bank there in broad daylight, causing a sonic boom in the country there. There's a picture of it there. I did have a video. I am sure, let me just see on Twitter here. I'm sure that they're showing some different things there. Let me just pop up the word meteorite here, or meteor is the way I did it earlier. I think I did a video and there was a video of it, but it's kind of hard to catch these things here. Let me just try Meteor Israel. I think that's the way I did it earlier. There was one video footage of this thing coming in. Here it is right here, this one here. So let it play again. There it goes. And it burst across the skies of Israel there. So I just thought it was kind of interesting, like I said, that it just so happens to happen as I'm preparing this particular footage. So pretty neat there. And I'll just retweet that for those of you that follow us there on Twitter. And by the way, if you don't know about following us on Twitter, here we are right there, Israeli News Live at Stephen Denoon, Denoon. And also, I'll just remind you, though, just before we get started here, those of you that want to support the broadcast, your help is greatly appreciated. So IsraeliNewsLive.org, our address is always at the top of the screen, right above my head there, Stephen Ben-Nun, and that's Bennun, P.O. Box 156, Sunbright, Tennessee 37872. Of course, you can always donate online. It's a little faster if that's the way you feel in your heart, but we really appreciate it, and believe me, it is your kindness that makes all these things possible. Somebody had wrote in the comments, before, I ended up having to turn the comments off on this other video that I did on Israeli News Live, and really and truly, I'm probably going to end up taking it down because I just wasn't ready, and I just did a terrible job on that video there. The real purpose I was wanting to be able to show, it wasn't a matter about who's first or what, nothing to do with that. It's just showing how the corroboration or the Mike just really seems to corroborate the information that I've been sharing for quite some time on our Patreon channel. But I did do the video on Patreon today that I said I was going to do. Who opened the door for the devil? And on this one, I had everything laid out. It was really ready, very well prepared. I think it'll be a blessing for many of you that want to watch that there. So in the description, as usual, the link to Patreon /Israeli News Live. That's how you find it. I think you'll really enjoy that. But it's because of this information that I'm really doing a lot of biblical searches there. And like I said, when I had the other video opened on comments there, I'd gotten one comment about the sixth seal. So maybe we'll touch into that a little bit as well. Let's look at this first. Revelation chapter 9, and then we're going to look at some very shocking information here, especially the Dead Sea Scrolls. That one has blown me away. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven into the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. To him. It's a star falling, but he gets the key. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. That's one reason why I want to bring up the Colburn, because when it talks about the way Planet X passes, and we're going to look at the past as well as the future one, that really makes you do some scratching your head.
Mm-hmm.
So and there came out of the smoke locust upon the earth, and unto them was given power, and the scorpions of the earth, as the scorpions of the earth have power. Now, in light of the idea of the locust, you have to understand the passing of this binary system definitely comes with locusts, even as we'll see in the, I don't think I actually have that part of the Colburn pulled up when it talked about when this system passed during the times of Moses and the Exodus. They actually claim that it happened during that time. I do believe that Malachi is actually referring to that to during that time of events as well. So there is a good possibility that that was the loop of the planet. So just a thought, keep these things in mind. And believe me, you're going to need an open mind on what we're talking about tonight, really and truly. It was commanded to them they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of the scorpion when he striketh a man. In those days shall men seek death and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle. And on their heads were, as it were, crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men. The locust the size of a horse, face of a man. This is not just some little bug. But even if we are looking at locusts, you know, if we look at the melting of the permafrost, one of the things that Mike mentioned up there near Russia, that, you know, watch for locusts up there. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk about that. Even we've actually brought that out as well. The locusts will be coming this year, but that's actually a thing that happens every so many years anyway on the earth. So it's nothing unusual. But
every 7 years or something.
Permafrost. Maybe so. I really don't know the answer to that at all. But if you go on down, though, and get into the sixth seal, saying to the sixth angel, which had the trumpet, loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the 4 angels were loose, which were prepared for an hour, a day, and a month, and a year, for to slay a third part of men. Now, that's the important part. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000. And I heard the number of them, and thus I saw the horses in the vision. Them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and jacinth, and brimstone, and heads of horses, whereas the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. By these 3 was the third part of men killed, by the fire, by the smoke, and by the brimstone which issued out of their mouths. For their power is in their mouth, and their tails, for their tails were like unto serpents, and had heads, and with them they do hurt. Now, you keep in mind, John, you know, going back all these years ago, 2,000 years ago, him trying to describe what he sees in these visions. Could this be possibly the passing of what we call Planet X, Nibiru, 9th planet is what the government will call it? Very good question. Very good question. And whether or not knowing the right answer to this, well, we'll just have to wait and see. Now, as I said to you, if we look at the cobra here, and I just pop it up on the screen, I do have highlighted portions that I wanted to share with you. One of the things it talks about is the destroyer. But I want to bring up for you, though, let's see here. Now, this is the Dead Sea Scrolls. Let me pop past the Dead Sea Scrolls first. I want to get into the Colburn first, and then we're going to come back to the Dead Sea Scrolls as well. All right, this here is the, this is, I believe, the stuff, and I'm only going to be...
Tree, I just looked at the lollies you brought. That'll keep you up for hours. Too much sugar.
A portion of this for you of when it passed in previous times, and I think this is referring to the time, I don't know if it's during the time, this one is actually the time during the flood, or if it was the time during the Exodus. I don't recall for sure, but let me just read to you.
He's being sworn in next Saturday, and I'm going to redo that. Is King Charles the 4th Horseman? I'm going to do that one again. So yeah, looking forward to it. Actually,
it says here there were some who struggled harder and were more disciplined because their forefathers had crossed the great dark void. Now, I think that is implying to the antediluvian destruction, the flood. Their desires were turned Godward, and they were called the children of God. Their country
got a lot of them,
inundated and enforced it. It was fertile, having many rivers and marshes, and there were great mountains to the east and to the west and the north, and was vast stony plain. Then came the day when all things became still and apprehensive. Yeah. But God caused a sign to appear in the heavens so that men should know the earth would be afflicted. And the sign was a strange star. Now, by the way, when it says strange star,
when I look at Revelation 9 and a star fell from heaven and him that had it had a key, I don't know. Let's think of just a thought, right? There was a strange star. The star grew and waxed to a great brightness and was awesome to behold. So it takes time. This thing's coming in. It's not just there in the same day. It put forth horns and sang, being unlike any other ever seen.
I know, aren't they, tell you?
Remember the images of Nibiru, the winged planet? That would be like the
It's a lot of
horns
chocolate.
that they would talk about. So men seeing it said among themselves, surely this is God appearing in the heavens. The star was not God, though it was directed by his design, but the people had not the wisdom to understand. I highlighted that in green because if you notice, it's directed by his design. In other words, it'll bring about the judgment that has been prophesied, but it's not the true Father. Then God manifested himself in the heavens. His voice was as the roll of thunders. And he was clothed with smoke and fire. He carried lightnings in his hand, and his breath falling upon the earth brought forth brimstone and embers. His eye was black void, with his mouth an abyss containing the winds of destruction. He encircled the whole of heavens, bearing upon his back a black robe adorned with stars. Now, when it says there that God manifests himself in the heavens, I still don't think it's talking about the true Father. I think in this case here, because they thought it was God, that now the narrator of this book is writing it in their way of thinking. Could be wrong. Correct. Such was the likeness and manifestation of God in those days. Awesome was his countenance, terrible his voice of wrath. The sun and the moon hid themselves in fear. There was a heavy darkness over the face of the earth. God passed through the spaces of heavens above with a mighty roar and a loud trumpeting. Then came the grim dead silence and the black red lit twilight of doom. Great fires and smoke rose up from the ground, and men gasped for air. The land was rent asunder and swept clean by a mighty deluge of waters. And hole opened up in the middle of the land, and the waters entered in and sank beneath the seas. This is crazy, right? I mean, absolutely wild. This is another portion of it. I want to read this part too. The mountains of the east and the west were split apart and stood up in the midst of the waters, which raged about, and the north land tilted and turned over on its side. Then again the tumult and clamor ceased, and all was silent in the quiet stillness. Madness broke out among men. Frenzy and shouting filled in the air. They fell upon one another in senseless wanton bloodshed. Neither did they spare woman or a child, for they knew not what they did. Notice that they didn't even realize what they were doing. They ran unseen, dashing themselves to destruction. They fled to caves and were buried and taken refuge in trees. They were hung. There was rape, murder, and violence of every kind. The deluge of waters swept back, and the land was purged clean. Rain beat down unceasingly, and there were great winds surging. Waters overwhelmed the land, and man and his flocks and his garden and all his works ceased to exist. Some of the people were saved upon the mountainsides and upon the flotsam, but they were scattered far apart over the face of the earth. They fought for survival in the lands of uncouth people, and amid coldness they survived in caves and sheltered places. You know, one of the things that I was being told early on is that this uptick in violence, this demonic entities and their ability, because of the opening of these dimensions and things of that nature, they're allowing demons in like never before. One of the things that I shared on Patreon some time back is how that the government was seeing a rise in violent crimes and things like that, especially out west. And of course, I think I did that in the fracking video there. what CIA learned from fracking, they believed that that water on the inner earth was a barrier from those spirits that are trapped inside the earth, but it was loosening them. Whether or not that's true or not, I don't know. I have no clue. Now, in this particular portion here, this is where it's going to be speaking about, I believe this is the future coming of this system once again. And this is where I want you to kind of pay close attention, and then we're going to get into the Dead Sea Scrolls, and we're going to be going into other biblical passages as well concerning this. This is chapter 3 called The Destroyer, part 1. Men forget the days of the destroyer. Only wise know where it went. And then it will return in its appointed hour. It raged across the heaven in the days of wrath, and this was its likeness. There's a billowing cloud of smoke, enwrapped in a ruddy glow, indistinguishable from joint or limb. Its mouth was an abyss from which came flame, smoke, and hot cinders. When age passed, certain laws operate upon the stars in the heavens. Their ways change. There's movement and restlessness.
And when ages pass, so ages like thousands of years,
no longer constant, and great light appears readily in the skies.
readily in the skies.
You know, last year I was told that the system would be entering our solar system by September. As far as I know, that actually did take place. The system has already moved in. Now, again, that takes maybe a year or two to get across. And they were saying that what they're watching for is the different planets and stuff, and how they'll be nudged and moved around as a result of that. And believe it or not, intelligence tends to use ancient documents to try to get a feel for what they're anticipating that is coming. Goes on to say, when blood drops upon the earth, the destroyer will appear, and mountains will open up and belch forth fire and ashes. Trees will be destroyed, and living things engulfed, and waters will be swallowed up by the land, and seas will boil. The heavens will burn brightly and redly. There will be a copper hue over the face of the land, followed by a day of darkness. A new moon will appear and break up and fall. The people will scatter in madness. They will hear the trumpet and battle cry of the destroyer, and will seek refuge within dens in the earth. Terror will eat away their hearts, and their courage will flow from them like water from a broken pitcher. They'll be eaten up in the flames of wrath and consumed by the breath of the destroyer. Now, what's really interesting is what's going to be written here in the next two lines here. Thus it was in the days of the heavenly wrath which have gone, and thus it will be in the days of doom when it comes again. The times of its coming gone.
Days of doom. Wow. That's heavy, the days of doom.
Are known unto the wise. These are the signs and times which shall precede the destroyer's return. 110 generations shall pass into the west, and nations will rise and fall. Men will fly in the air as birds, and swim in the
Wow.
seas as fishes. Men will talk peace one with another. Hypocrisy and deceit shall have their day. And women will be as men, and men as women. Passion will be a plaything of man. A nation of soothsayers shall rise and fall. Their tongue shall be the speech learned, and a nation of lawgivers shall rule the earth. We are definitely living in a day where men fly in the air like birds and swim in the seas like fish. They didn't have that. And I forget exactly how far back the oldest copy of this book goes. I think it's several hundred years at least. Supposedly it goes back during the times of Christ, but I do not have any clue if that's true or not. It is an old book. I do know that. It is a book that, as far as the age of it, I believe predates anything that we would have for modern technology. So again, like I said, it's more of a historical document than anything. That's the way I take it. All right, we're going to come back here. Let me first go back, see where we're at over here. We're going to be looking at the Dead Sea Scrolls, and this is where we're at over here. I didn't actually pull up the very one that we're at here, but the Dead Sea Scrolls, where you can search it online. It's got both the Hebrew and the English in there for you to be able to look at that if you ever decide you want to do so. But the one we're going to be looking at is going to be referring to the scriptures here of Isaiah chapter 10. And when you look at this from the Dead Sea Scrolls, when I say the Dead Sea Scrolls, because the Qumranite community there, it's going to give you the interpretation of this scripture. I'm going to first read it right here from the Bible, and then we're going to go look at the way it's written in the Dead Sea Scrolls and their interpretation of certain passages. So let's begin. Isaiah chapter 10, starting with verse 16. Therefore will the Lord of hosts, send among his fat ones leanness, and under his glory there shall be kindled a burning light, burning of fire. And the light of Israel shall be for fire, and his Holy One for a flame. It shall burn and devour his thorns and his briars in one day. The glory of his forest and his fruitful field he will consume both soul and body, and it shall be as when a sick man wasteth away. The remnant of the trees of his forest shall be few. The child may write them down. It shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel and they that are escaped of the house of Jacob shall no more again stay upon him that smote them, but shall stay upon the Lord, the Holy One of Israel, in truth. A remnant shall return, even the remnant of Jacob, unto God the mighty. El Gibor. For though thy people, O Israel, be as the sand of the sea, only a remnant of them shall return. An extermination is determined, overflowing with righteousness. By the way, verse 21, when a remnant shall return, even the remnant of Jacob, unto God the mighty, I find that very interesting right there. Yashuv sha'a Yaakov el Gibor. You know what Jesus is referred to in Isaiah chapter 9? He's referred to as El Gibor. Besides the Prince of Peace, he is the El Gibor, the mighty God. Will it be that at the time of the passing of this planet, this demonic influence, that many of the ancestors of those that once believed that Jesus was the Messiah will return to him? Think about it. For though thy people, O Israel, be as the sand of the sea, only a remnant of them shall return. An extermination is determined, overflowing with righteousness. And pay attention to that one right there. An extermination is determined. For an extermination wholly determined shall the Lord, the God of hosts, make in the midst of the earth.
Wow.
Therefore, thus saith the Lord, the God of hosts, O my people that dwellest in Zion, be not afraid of Ashur. Though he smite thee with the rod and lift up his staff against you, after the manner of Egypt. You know, Ashur is modern Syria and Iran, Iraq, all that. He's telling Zion, he's telling Israel, don't be afraid of them. And he's letting you know this is going to happen at a time when they're going to smite you with a rod. For yet a very little while, and the indignation shall be accomplished, and mine anger shall be to their destruction. Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Okay. Before I go to the Dead Sea Scrolls, I'm going to take you to Malachi. Now, if you're reading in the King James, you're going to go to Malachi chapter 4, verse 1, right through verse 5 or 6, something to that effect. In the Tanakh, it's in the chapter 3. There is no chapter 4. And it begins in verse 19. For behold, the day cometh, it burneth as a furnace, and all the proud and all that work wickedness shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall set them ablaze, saith the Lord of hosts, and it shall leave them neither root nor branch. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in its wings. And you shall go forth and gambol as calves of the stall. I thought that was interesting. The Shemesh Tzadikah Umwofe Bekanafiyah. I normally think of Jesus when I think of this. But you know, they also say about Planet X, it's a failed star. It's a dwarf star. They call it, in other words, like another sun, but it's kind of lost its spark. And again, it's called the winged planet. I don't know what to think about that, but I will show you something, though, that did catch my attention. And you shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet in the day that I do make, saith the Lord of hosts. Remember ye the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel, even statutes and ordinances. We're going to come back to that after we do the Dead Sea Scrolls, or that one right there. I always wondered, why did God, and all of his wisdom, decide to remind you about Moses when we're reading about destruction and ashes and burning of the planet and everything else and all this judgment? Why does he talk about Horeb for all Israel, even the statutes and ordinances, right? I think there's a reason for that, and you're going to see it when we go to Deuteronomy and read it.
Should be able to screw the end.
This is, behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and terrible day of the Lord. And don't forget, as I've said to you on many of the videos I did on the two witnesses, Jesus puts the coming of Elijah in the future when John the Baptist is already dead. When they come to him, they said, doesn't the scripture say that Elias must first come? And Jesus says, truly, Elias will come and restore all things. He says, but I said to you, he's come already. And they did to him what was listed. Now he's talking about John the Baptist. But while John the Baptist is dead, he's saying that he will come and restore all things. And that's supposed to happen, what? Before this terrible day. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the land with an utter destruction. A chorim. Now, Jesus only applied to John turning the heart of the fathers to their children. He never applied to turning the heart of the children to their fathers. Never did. So hold that in your mind. Let's go to the Dead Sea Scrolls now. And again, remember, the Dead Sea Scrolls is going to mirror Isaiah chapter 10, where we were just reading. And I want you to see with the Qumranite community how they spoke of this. Let's blow it up so you guys can see it. I'm going to start above in the fragment above here. Like fuel for the fire, no one forgives his brother. He destroys to the right and remains hungry, and he consumes to the left and is not satiated. A man eats the flesh of his arm. Manasseh against Ephraim, Ephraim against Manasseh, the two together against Judah, and with all this, his wrath is not mollified. A quote from Isaiah 10, verse 19. Will be, and a young man will count them. And you got a blank spot. Now, we're going to ease back and forth. Let's go to verse 19. And the remnant of the trees of his forest shall be a few, that a child may write them down. That's where he's quoting from. What does he say about it? He said the interpretation of the word concerns the edict of Babylon, the edict of the peoples, to betray many, he, Israel, what it says, Goes back to chapter 10, verse 19. The remainder of trees of the wood will be a small number, and a young man will count them. Its interpretation concerns the reduction of men. I'd love another blank spot on the rest of that, right? Then they quote Isaiah 10, verse 22. On that day it will happen that the remainder of the house of Israel and the survivors of the house of Jacob will cease to lean on their assailant, but will lean loyally on Yahweh the Holy One of Israel. A remnant will return, a remnant of Jacob to the God the warrior. Even if your people Israel were like the sand of the sea, only a remnant will return. Now we look at that as being, most of us, we always kind of look at that as being, the Jewish people returning back to the land in modern days. Watch what he says here. The interpretation of the word concerns the final days. They will go into captivity, and what it says in Isaiah 10:21, even if your people Israel are like the sand of the sea, only a remnant will return. Its interpretation concerns the reduction. Since it is written in Isaiah 22 and 23, extermination is decreed, but justice will overflow because destruction is decreed. The Lord Yahweh of hosts will execute it in the midst of the whole earth. Therefore, the Lord Yahweh of hosts, do not fear my people who live in Zion. They're talking about an event that's going to wipe out mankind, both Jew and Gentile alike. That only a remnant will be left over. Look at what else it continues to say here. This is in fragment 4Q 163. The interpretation of the world concerns the kings of Babylon, since as it is written in Isaiah 14:8, the very cypresses laugh at you, and the cedars of Lebanon, since you lie down, the hewer does not come up against them. The cypress and the cedars of Lebanon are, and what it says in Isaiah 14.
Oh, this bit's from Zechariah.
This is the strategy decided for all the earth, and this is the hand stretched out against all the peoples, for Yahweh of hosts has decided who will thwart him. His hand is stretched.
I don't think he's got the Dead Sea Scrolls yet. Oh, now he has fragments. So he's showing what they're saying in the Dead Sea Scrolls and showing the scripture that is exactly the same.
Out. Who will push it aside? This is, as it was written in the book of Zechariah 3:9. See, I will engrave its inscription of oracle of Yahweh of hosts. Going to Isaiah 14:28-30. In the year of the death of King Ahaz, this oracle was uttered. Do not rejoice, all Philistia, that the rod which injured you is shattered, because from the root of the snake shall come a viper, and its fruit will be a flying asp. The most destitute will be fed, and the poor will lie down in safety, and I will make your root die in hunger, and he will kill your remnant.
Wow.
A flying asp. A draconian planet, a winged planet, a flying serpent. And isn't it interesting that as he spoke about the cedars of Lebanon, since you lie down, the hewer does not come up against them. What caused them to lie down? Well, if we go back over here, see, even here, concerns with Babylon, the remainder of trees of the wood will be small number, and a young man will count them. Its interpretation concerns the reduction of men. I think it also refers to the reduction of plant life and tree life as well. That's just how destructive this force will be. And of course, we're only getting just a small fragment of what's written here in the Dead Sea Scrolls about this, but as you look at it, you begin to re-examine again, then it begins to make sense, especially in light of Malachi chapter 4, when we read about, for behold, the day cometh and burneth as a furnace, and all the proud, all that work wickedness shall be stubble, and the day that cometh shall set them ablaze, saith the Lord of hosts. and that it shall leave them neither root nor branch.
I was
As
never
I
here.
mentioned
Good to
you
see ya.
earlier, I said, he says, remember ye the law of my servant Moses, which I commanded him to Horeb for all Israel, even the statutes and ordinances. I don't know for sure, but it makes me wonder as you go back and look at that, watch the way it's written here in Deuteronomy. I believe it's chapter 5 of Deuteronomy, if I'm not mistaken here. Let me just double check. Chapter 4, I apologize. Assemble me the people, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they live upon the earth, and that they may teach their children.
Scott Ritter, he goes on Red Pill TV and talks about what's really going on in Ukraine and Russia. And Tricky says he's a pervert. So there, that's who he is.
And you came near and stood under the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire into the heart of heaven, with darkness, cloud, and thick darkness. And the Lord spoke unto you out of the midst of the fire, and you heard the voice of the words, but you saw no form, only a voice. And he declared unto you his covenant, which he had commanded you to perform, even the 10 words, and he wrote them upon 2 tables of stone. And the Lord commanded me at that time to teach you the statutes and ordinances, that you might do them in the land whether you go over to possess it. When that judgment passed, and according to the Colburn, it was the destroyer, the Planet X, that came through. Could we have still been going through a time where it was at that time that God comes down and meets the children of Israel, and everything is still a burning of fire and everything? I don't really know the answer to that, but I kind of can't help but wonder because of what Malachi states. He refers us back to that time period. So I went back and looked at it, and I'm seeing all this burned with a fire and a smoke, darkness, cloud, thick darkness, etc. It makes you think. Really makes you think. In closing, let me say this here. I want to go back to 2 Corinthians because I do want to do a separate video on this. When Paul writes to us here in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, he says, "But I beseech you that I may not be bold when I am present with that confidence wherewith I think to be bold against some, which think of us as if we walked according to the flesh. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh." That's important right there, friends. "For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations, every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ." I forget exactly where it was as we were looking at the things that I've been sharing with you tonight, but one of the major things that takes place during this time of all this happening, maybe it was in the Colburn here, so I'll kind of see if I can back up and find it. And let's see. The sun and moon hid themselves. Where was it at there? And it fell upon us. Says, okay, yeah, madness broke out among men, frenzy and shouting. Then again, the tumult, which was like a fighting and everything, clamor ceased, and all was silent. In quiet stillness, madness broke out among men, frenzy and shouting filled the air. They fell upon one another in senseless wanton bloodshed, and neither did they spare woman or child. We are discovering that as this system is coming in, and everything I've been hearing over the last couple of years, more and more and more, the minds of the people are just going nuts. The majority of the thoughts that come to your head are not even you. Might be your voice. You might hear your own voice and you think it's you, but it's not. And this is why when Paul speaks here For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. You know, let me see if I can pull that up real quick because, let's see, we're in, what did I say we were in? Let me go back over here and find it. In 2 Corinthians, I believe. Yeah, 2 Corinthians 10. I feel so strongly right now that people need help to prepare to know what's coming. Now here we go, strongholds right here. Is fortified through the idea of holding safely a castle, a stronghold.
Yeah, it's getting crazy.
I was looking to see if there were any of the words used like what we see another place where Paul speaks about, you know, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against, let me just see if I can just pull that up for you. Ephesians 6, there we go. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. There you go, right there. The principalities are archaea. That's archons. These are fallen angels. And against powers, exousia. And it's force, capacity, competency, freedom. You know, I'm just trying to say if there's any particular thing I can look at there. Against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take you on the whole armor of God. You know, these portals that are being opened, these things that are prophesied to be open, even the Euphrates and things of that nature there, they're symbolic, the words that are being used there, but in reality, these are some very demonic doorways that are being opened. And as these spirits are let loose on the earth, I can only imagine, like what we read in the Colburn there, you know, they were dealing with murders and everything else. Everything was on the increase. They didn't care if it was a woman or a child or anything. What are we going to be facing? We need to truly have on the full armor of God. We need to remember, as it says in 2 Corinthians, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Don't let these things rule your mind. First recognize, that's why Paul says, try the spirits, right? Let's see if I can find that one for you as well real quick. Try the spirits. See if they are of God. Okay? First, actually, John that wrote that. Beloved, believe not every spirit. There you are right there. But try the spirits, whether they are of God, because many false prophets are gone out into the world. And we're not just talking about even with false prophets, because believe me, you know, and that in itself, many false prophets are gone out into the world, right? Think about that, and then think about where we read here, casting down imagination and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. If people are being bombarded for evil in this day and age, what about those religious spirits? What was that other scripture there? Satan appears as an angel of light, right?
Yeah. Wasn't it? Yeah.
And isn't it interesting that happens to be in 2 Corinthians 11:14, the very...
I wasn't going to go there, Tricky. I could have made a good joke, But I thought, no, I better not go and make a comment on sweet gums. I thought I'd stay out of that one.
Next chapter. Let's back up. For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Wow. Maybe we should just jump over. Let's just jump over here into the scripture. Let's go up here. Let's jump over to that chapter. We can see a little bit better there. For he that cometh preaches another Jesus whom we have not preached, or if you receive another spirit which you have not received, or another gospel which you have not accepted, you might well bear with him. For I suppose I was not with behind the very chiefest apostles, but though I be rude in speech, yet in knowledge, but we have been thoroughly made manifest among you in all things. Let me see where that passage is as we get a little bit closer here before it's down to verse 14. All right, so let's jump back over. All right, let's start with verse 10. As the truth of Christ is in me, no man shall stop me of this boasting of the regions of Achaia. Wherefore, because I love you not, God knoweth. But what I do, that I will do. And I may cut off the occasion from them which desire occasion, that wherein they glory, they may have found even as we. For such are false apostles and deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ. And no marvel, for Satan himself transformed to an angel of light. Therefore it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works.
No, he did not do that.
Think about it. Think about it, friends. That is powerful. So not just the evils and the murders and adulteries and everything else, but his ministers will be transformed as ministers of righteousness. And don't kid yourself. Many of them will lead you right in to believing this right-wing theocracy happening in Israel right now that will bring about the Noahide laws. I'm Stephen Benoon. You've watched.
And they've got their Eunuka, they've got their false Messiah now, Israel.
Israeli News Live. Listen.
Okay, sticking in a theme of Israeli News Live. This one's recent of theirs. Where is it? Demonic entities gaining access to our world. And it's how many days old? Okay, 12 days old, guys.
Good afternoon, friends. Stephen Benoon here with Israeli News Live on our Patreon channel. And boy, I tell you what, the video I did on YouTube, Israeli News Live, I really butchered that message. Oh my gosh, I had so many flaws that happened, and really what I was trying to do was to be able to share with people the important information that we put here on Patreon. And of course, it comes over time. And Mike from around the world on Paul's program, and even on his own program, he brings out a lot of information. But it's a lot of that information are things that we've shared even a little bit earlier on. And Mike is very, very gifted at what he does. He's a very, very intelligent man. And I mean, there are things that I disagree with him on when it comes to Israel and the
I actually don't drink rum anymore. It's too strong.
Support of the state of Israel. Not against the support of the Jewish people, mind you, but it is, and of course, sometimes I get accused of being anti-Semitic. I also come from a Jewish background, so I'm not anti-Semitic. I am wanting to expose those that are saying they're Jews and not, and are trying to run the nation right into the ground, all on the pretense that this is some kind of a godly thing that's going on. So we've proven scripturally, time and time again, there are no lost tribes. There, at least back 2,000 years ago, clearly, New Testament passage proves all 12 tribes of Israel were home. Acts chapter 2, etc. So these were things that I had to wake up to as well. So I don't fault people not really recognizing that. Same thing with Paul Begley. I realize he is very much pro-Zionist. And so a lot of the things that they share are going to be very pro-Zionist, not recognizing and not standing with the true believers, the Jewish believers that are in Israel right now that are in danger from this right-wing government and the things that are happening over there. But that's really not what we're going to get into today. You know, there are things, there's a lot of things that Mike is speaking about that that we have brought out ourselves here on Patreon for you. And because of this one video that he did here, I like to bring it out. And it's not to say who's first, who's second. It has nothing to do with that. It is because what he's bringing out corroborates information I've already shared with you. And it also kind of helps me to dig a little deeper as well. In fact, I would love to be able to interview Mike for that very
Good night, Talia. God bless.
Between the two of us there, I'm sure it would really bring a lot of information out of me as well, because it would just cause me to remember a lot of things. So anyway, pardon all the background noise. I got a dog dreaming on the chair over there. I got the ducks outside the door and a cat in another chair there. So there is no telling what all we're going to hear today. But hopefully we can get past all that. And I think that this time around, I've got everything laid out the way I wanted to. But we're going to be taking some of these videos that I'm going to share with you that I've done in the past on some of the things that Mike is talking about. Plus, I'll kind of elaborate on this too. Is a lot of it was on Patreon. Some of it was on Israeli News Live, some on iConnect. But it is, for those of you, if we do share this video on Israeli News Live later, it's just to let you know, our Patreon viewers are normally the ones that I share this type of information with, because there's so many people that are so critical.
Oh, look out. Vass has woke up. Vass, did you not off again, bro? Someone was asking where you went.
About when you begin to talk about entities and things like that, whereas on Patreon, the people that are here tend to be a little bit more open-minded, and they're a little bit more accepting of these types of things. I am going to follow this up, though, with a biblical teaching. I'm really wanting to go very deep into this because it is biblical. The things that I'm sharing with you is very biblical. And but I think what happens is, because of the way it was written in the Bible and the way they allowed things to come out, you really have to look deep into what writings are there, especially if it's Paul or Jesus or anybody else. People normally just take it, oh, that's spiritual. You know, it's a lot deeper than spiritual. We are really fighting a war, and that war is about to get much worse. And I'm going to share that in a biblical teaching that will actually be airing on Israeli News Live, possibly doing an institute as well on iConnectFX.com. Do be sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. Just since yesterday, I watched the numbers start declining very rapidly. YouTube is censoring us. I know this on a number of levels there, that we are hacked. My phones are tapped. My house is bugged. You name it. So we can just say greetings to all those out there, CIA, NSA, whoever else is out there listening in, watching us, Mossad, Israeli Mossad, etc. You know, as I've said to you before, we've been targeted, and more and more of that will come out very, very soon. In fact, probably going to come out a heck of a lot sooner than what you realize, and you may even be seeing it on mainstream news in very, very soon about a lot of things that are going on. It's one reason why I'm not saying too much as of yet. Anyway, let's get started here. This is at the 26-minute mark. This is on Daily Excellent, where Anthony posts some of these interviews as well. Mike is, let's see, planet traveling. Well, let's just see. Okay, this is where Mike is. Paul had asked him earlier the question I asked him to speak up to him about, is Planet X traveling in the ether? Paul doesn't exactly say it right, but it's okay. Still gets the point. Now, Mike comes back to that a little later in the video, about 10 minutes earlier. He asked him about it, but he doesn't answer it first because Paul goes into a whole lot of other questions at the same time. And then he comes back and answers it here. And he's going to answer it in a very bizarre way. But I definitely understood his answer, and so I'm going to elaborate on that, plus play a clip for you about where I talk about this as well. Listen in.
That question you asked me first is is Planet X traveling? Would you say with
on the ether? Yeah, with the ether.
Well, let me explain something though.
Okay.
Within a 1 foot by 1 foot cube of matter, there's enough power, right? Everywhere, there's enough power to run everything on Earth for 150 years. That's what.
Diane, it's still illegal here. You can't buy marijuana. You can get medical marijuana, but it's really expensive. So I just buy feminized seeds off the net, and I get good strains. And I've just harvested my last spring plant.
In what people call the ether.
Okay.
That's what CERN is extracting, right? That's what they're tampering. That's what they're toying with. They're pulling things out of another dimension, and they're absolutely going to. They're going to go in there. They peered in there, and in fact, they first peered in there in the 50s. They're going to go in there in a different way this time again.
I had a guy here.
CERN is the completion of a project that began in the 50s.
Mike, I had.
All right, now, you know what? I think what I'll do is I'll play a little bit more, because now Paul's going to talk about a guy that was some type of scientist that visited where he was speaking at. So maybe I should play that as well. I want you to pay attention, though, where he said they're going to go in there. Okay? They're going to go in there. He talks about the power that's generated from 1 cubic square of the ether.
Oh my.
Okay, so let me see. Maybe I should play a little bit more, because the other thing that Paul says here is kind of interesting. Let me see if I can play.
I'm a scientist here. I'm in Branson, Missouri tonight because I preached here last night and was on a couple television shows for Jim Baker. And Israel's going to be doing praise and worship tomorrow night here in Branson for Pastor Carl Gallups will be preaching tomorrow night. Well, anyway,
wow, Barry, that link.
Preaching last night on the Beast Kingdom Rising.
Barry, that link, wow, that was as creepy as hell.
Good crowd here too. A man came up to me and at the end and said, "You don't know me," except that I am a scientist. I'm a molecular scientist. But he said, "I know a lot of my friends are physicists and scientists, and some of my friends have worked for CERN, and some are still working at CERN." So he said, "I'd like to share one thing with you." And I said, "Okay, sir." He said, "They are 1/64th of an inch from piercing the veil." And he said, and I said, what? He goes, I'm talking metaphorically. What I'm trying to tell you is, they know how to do it. They want to do it. They're afraid of what's on the other side. And they're trying to communicate with what's on the other side to get permission to do it, because they're afraid of what is waiting for them.
I would say 10 examples.
All right, we're going to pause it just for a moment here. I'm going to elaborate on this quite a bit here in just a moment. But before I do, I want to take you here. This is November the 8th, 2022, video that I did here. And it's only where I speak about a couple of things that I'll speak about on here. About this is, of course, Planet X Nibiru, maybe closer than you know. This was a video, of course, that we posted on Israeli News Live. I don't think this was actually on Patreon. This is one of the few times where I decided to come out and really share some deeper things. Let's listen into this one here as well. Make sure the volume's up. There we go. You guys, I wanted to share that with you too, in light of the information I'm going to be speaking about. Now, everything I've ever been told about Planet X is that in order to see it, unless it's close enough to our sun where it can reflect the light of our sun, you have to have infrared technology to be able to photograph it. And one of the latest things that was shared with me is that the planet had kind of disappeared off of radar. It's been a couple of years since we've had our last infrared images of this planet. And that's because, as I've told you before, Planet X travels in the ether. It's actually going in between one dimension and another dimension, back and forth.
And Vast, that's exactly what you say. Wow. You say that Planet X goes in and out of dimensions. Wow, mate.
We've talked about this for quite a couple, well, 2 or 3 years now. I've actually spoke to you about that and how that works.
Yeah, well done, Will.
But the concern right now, and this subject came up at a meeting in Washington recently, is that because it's kind of disappeared into the ether, could it have actually, well, let me put it this way here. I wasn't told that it slipped into a wormhole, but I have been told, and I have shared with you before here, that there are certain extraterrestrial entities that use wormholes in order to be able to travel much faster from one part of the universe to the other. For example, I shared with you on Patreon, our channel there, patreon.com/Israeli News Live, that wormholes are one way that one group of entities that live 10 light years away from us can actually get here pretty much in about 30 days. That's the way they travel. They hit the wormholes, and it's almost like it projects them forward in time. Or even though I know that everything I've been told, we don't necessarily know that there is time travel, that it exists, but there are some elements that suggest that it could exist. And wormholes are one of those particular ideologies for that. And like, for example, if you look at the AndersonInstitute.com, they deal with time control and time travel. And specifically, I'm going to be sharing with you this wormhole theory. I'm fixing to be speaking here in about another 30 seconds about that energy that's in the
real. Ever since the sound of the barrier was broken, people have turned their attention to how can we break the light speed barrier. But warp drive, or any other term for faster than light travel, still remains at the level of speculation. Well, the thing is, though, is it really that they can travel that fast, or is it not that, but like a shortcut? That's what I kind of wonder myself. So since the 1930s, this is from the Anderson Institute's website, physicists have speculated about the existence of wormholes in the fabric of space. Wormholes are hypothetical areas of warped space-time with great energy that can create tunnels through the space-time.
So that's where the energy comes from, is through the ether, created through that wormhole. It's one of the things that they have discovered. There's also pyramid energy as well, another thing that is used. In fact, if you can see beyond the what we call the veil. Now, we're not talking about the ether in this case here, just the magnetosphere.
Hi, Tedder.
Kind of hinders our view of space. I mean, we see a lot.
We're not fans of the Catholics here, just letting you know.
Different atmospheres that make up this planet, it does kind of distort that view. And we do have planets that are very near to us that are also, they have electricity on them. They are civilizations of entities that live there, and we know they use pyramid technology. But the thing that I was looking at when I was bringing these things out, where Mike is speaking about that energy, and that they know that in 1 cubic foot of the ether, there's more energy that could power the earth, I guess, for a year, he says, on there, and they're wanting to tap into that. And then Paul comes up and he's talking about this guy, this molecular scientist he met, and he's talking about they're afraid they could do this, they could pierce that, but they're afraid about what's on the other side. Well, there are a group of scientists that are very limited in their knowledge and very limited in knowing on what really goes on. But when you get into the aspects of DARPA, the CIA, and the intelligence communities that actually control a lot of this information and behind the scenes of the secret space program that we have, no, we definitely have already pierced the veil. We have already gone across. And Mike does speak about some of that on there. That's one of the reasons why it'd be really fascinating to sit down with him in an interview and talk to him about these things, because of the things that I'm aware of myself. And then, of course, his knowledge of that. I think he's probably had more firsthand experience. Mine is, of course, secondhand and sometimes thirdhand, depending on how that information comes down. And I have multiple sources. I have Israeli contacts as well that are deep into that type of knowledge that is through a secondhand source on that information, as well as other intelligence.
Amen,
fields that I
Han.
have
Amen.
here in the U.S. So I pull from the different spectrums there of that technology and that information to be able to share it with you guys. Let's move down a little further, though. Let's go to 3830 on his video there. Maybe, oh, we're actually already there. So let me just play it. See, Paul says, "What's on the other side?" Mike, they have had examples. That's what we're going to play there, because Mike's going to talk about. They've already had examples, and then in 3930, he's going to say CERN is tampering with time, and then Mike goes into the thoughts. Most of our thoughts are external. Now, one of my teachings that I'm going to be doing here this evening after I finish this video is going to be dealing with that because I am very concerned that, especially as the demonic forces that are running our governments and stuff, and them trying to open up these veils and bring these entities in, we're about to be bombarded like never before. So this, when I'm playing this information for you here, this is not haphazard. This really, I feel, is important for you to understand the technology side of this, and then we're going to go into the biblical aspect of this too, so that you are really prepared. As Paul said, putting on the full armor of God. This is not just some kind of metaphoric thing that Paul is talking about. You're in for a ride, and we're in for a ride that you ain't never been on before, and I want you to be ready. So let's listen a little bit more here.
What about purgatory, Tedder? The Catholics teach purgatory. The priests call themselves Father, which breaks the commandment. Do not take the Lord's name in vain. They forgive sins. Nowhere have they got the authority to forgive sins. And they also worship Placer Casa Mary. And 1 billion Catholics a day pray to Mary. She is not God. She cannot process 1 billion prayers a day. You're completely wasting your time. And you're breaking 3 or 4 commandments before we even look at it deeply. Changing the Sabbath to Sunday. Wow, mate, you guys, you Catholics, you surely know how to do the real word of God, don't you?
They've had examples. They know what happens when you tamper with exotic materials, when you're tampering with forces they shouldn't tamper with. When they back engineer things that have been up there for a long time, they know exactly what happens. You know the horror stories behind, and it's not the attractive UFO picture everybody would want.
No.
Well, let's go ahead and face it. There are things on this earth that are better left alone, but mankind did not leave them alone. They've had advantages from it, yes, but it has cost a lot of lives. CERN ultimately will. CERN tampers with time. CERN tampers with time.
With time, really?
With dimensions.
Really?
You're going to tamper with. You can't.
But let me just say, though, why he's saying that about it tampers with time is because, like I mentioned to you from the other video there, CERN opens up. It can open up a wormhole. It can literally open up the ether, go from one side to the other. It manipulates time. We know that through CERN, we've already discovered at least 7 other dimensions. Now, that's at least what I've been made privy to. No telling what else out there exists. And the next 2 dimensions beyond this, we have Earth just like our Earth, same exact solar system, everything you can see, but it is in a different time warp, a different time period. One of those planets are in the 50s. Now, Mike talks about, I've shared this with you guys before, he talks about we've lost people. We've actually sent people over to these other dimensions where these other Earths are, and we have trackers on them. We know they're there. We have not lost the ability to.
Tedder, I will say this, mate. Feel free to talk. We don't time people out for opinions. We only get rid of people if they blaspheme on purpose or be purposely rude, like sexually crude. So feel free to discuss. Everyone likes to talk here. It's a free open forum.
They're there, but we can't get them back. So imagine that. A lot could be said on these things. Okay, let's listen more.
And you can't tamper with a dimension without tampering with time. And so if you tamper with time, where people are conscious, you're going to have a melding of almost like the dream world, hell's world.
See, that's the problem. There's no such thing as purgatory. You can post Luke 12:59 and I'll look at that and I bet it doesn't even suggest that. So you can say that when you die, it's judgment, heaven or hell. There's no purgatory. Purgatory's there so you can pay the Catholic priests to pray you out of purgatory. That's why purgatory's there. Same as indulgences. Pay the Pope, money to commit sins. They're still doing indulgences.
In this world,
Yes,
all
yes,
one
there you
time,
go.
and this will be beyond the person's.
Purgatory is not biblical.
Well, it doesn't matter if the person wants that to happen or not. They'll be subject to it, prone to it. So voices, for example, if people would just stop for a second.
Now, I want you to notice, though, where Mike says is you're not going to be able to do anything about it. And we have more than one type of way that scientists are tampering with the other side. CERN is one way. CERN is opening a portal, a gateway. It is opening an avenue of demonic entities that, as I've said before, this is how I think they're going to bring Planet X in. As we were talking about, I think it was over in the book of Revelation last night, where when that pit is open and the smoke and everything rose out of it, very similar to that of what you have in the Colburn. And again, as I said, they call it a Bible, but listen, don't take it as a Bible. But if you want to look at it from a historic point of view, this is where you read about the passing of Planet X in the past and also what's anticipated in the future. And then when you look at the book of Revelation, oh my gosh, it's very similar, very scary, in fact, the way it looks when you're reading that. Now, but as I said, though, he's talking about these entities and things that, that's going to open up the minds to the dream world, like a dream world, but you're going into a demonic world. Yes, very, very true. And I'm going to share with you here some of the.
Okay, Teddy, can you show me in the Bible where the word purgatory shows up? Can you just show me that, please? Like if there's a purgatory, I'm pretty sure Jesus would have told us. He told us about Hades and all that. So if there's a purgatory, why didn't he actually mention purgatory? Can you show me in the Bible where he says purgatory?
Information that I did as well, like what prompted the building of CERN. Wait a minute, extracting energy. All right, listen, in fact, before we get too far into this, let me take you.
Jesus says we must keep the commandments to be saved, you just said. As you break the commandments, calling a priest father. That's breaking the commandments. Don't you get that? Praying to idols of Mary. That's one of the 10 commandments, and you're breaking it. There's no way you can justify it. That's blasphemy. You're breaking the law.
One of the videos that I did, let's see, CERN and extracting energy. Let me see. I think it's what prompted the building of CERN. Wait a minute. Let me just make sure I get the right video.
Amen, Han.
What prompted the building of CERN. Here we go. At 1:20, and we're already close enough there. All right, this is actually though where I talk about. All right, because if you remember, all right, let's just back up before I get into the spirits. One of the things he said at the beginning of this clip we were playing is that they've already tapped in and had experiences. So let me play.
Okay, Tedder, I'll agree with you on that one.
That for you. This is one of those ones where that happened in the video, What Prompted the Building of CERN. This was a Patreon video that we had that aired.
Idea of what they were actually dealing with. There was actually a device that was discovered in the Middle East there, and it's that device that they took to the underground facility, which is about 27 stories underground. 27 stories in an underground bunker there, where this device was taken to, where scientists were studying it, trying to figure it out, etc. And so I'm going to take you, like I said, really on the inside of the conversations that we have, so you can kind of get a better idea of what I actually get to hear myself. So anyway, he says that the movie Stargate is predicated on an event in Colorado, and there are several mountains there with different types of bunkers, including for nuclear war, etc. And another bunker was for scientific analysis. And there's where the device that they had discovered in the Middle East, the device was actually housed in that facility, 27 stories underground. And I was told that the device had like puzzle pieces around the perimeter of the circumference. And depending on the sequence, you rotated the inner ring to match the outer ring. And depending on the sequence you used to match the outer ring to align the puzzle up, it would have a certain reaction. Most of the time, the scientists had no result, but if you hit the right sequence, it would create some sort of a wormhole. But it wasn't a wormhole like the movie, similar to a wormhole but similar to a door or a portal that CERN can open. The scientists believe that the different sequences.
Now, if you notice, it's a door similar to that of what CERN can open. All right. Like I said, they already know how to do it with CERN, and we've already done it. With, in one video I spoke about how that we had an evil entity that literally came back, and granted, when I say the entity came back and it was CERN that did it, we never discussed which hadron collider we used to do that. So whether or not it was truly the one there in France or Switzerland, I should say, that goes underneath France, etc. there, I don't know. I just know that 2 scientists were killed as a result. And of course, they'll never make that public of what happens. But like I said, we have 6 of these that I'm aware of. And so, and who knows, they could probably have more. I just don't know the answer to all of that. But they opened up this wormhole to save time. What happened is while they were sitting in there one day, they got a call coming in. And they had to make a decision whether to answer or not. I spoke about this yesterday. And this giant worm about the size of a human being come through when they answered the call. And he began to kill the scientists, the Marines that we have down there in the base there. They ended up killing this creature. And we've had another situation like that. And I brought that out on Patreon a long time ago. I forget what it was. Another situation where we had an entity come in. They ended up took 27 concrete trucks to pump enough concrete down into the, I think this was the one in Colorado, where they had to block the entire section off down there because they were afraid of this entity getting out. There's some crazy stuff that goes on, So yeah, when Mike talks about we've had experiences, we definitely have had some really, really bizarre experiences there. So at any rate there, let's see here. I'll go ahead and play it for you, though. This was where the 2 scientists were killed.
Okay, Teddo, you said so you oppose calling Abraham father. The difference is we're not calling him our spiritual father. Catholic priests say they're spiritually the father, and that's blasphemy because only God is the father. So that's the difference between calling Abraham a father and the priests calling themselves father. It's semantics, but it's true.
This is on the 2 scientists right here at the 155 mark here. Let me play that there because we're going to get back here in just a moment here. Back in June 2021. And this one still, I've never made this one public. It's still there on Patreon. It's still considered unlisted there, but I'll play it for you here a little bit.
It is made public about their deaths. The thing is will they ever tell you really what caused it? Now, what I find very interesting about this particular subject is that I also discovered too that the scientists have noticed a uptick in what is being termed to me as demonic possession.
Okay, let me look something up here for a minute. Hang on.
The scientists that are speaking about these things don't like to use the word demonic. They prefer to say that it is some type of high energy of some sort that is taken.
Now, if you notice, this is also going in line with what Mike was saying on there, that it's like the dream world, but it's not really a dream world. It's a very demonic world there, okay? So, and this is dealing with CERN, but we're also going to be dealing with.
Okay, just like I knew if I looked it up. When it says Father Abraham, it's small letter F, not capital letter F, yet the priests call themselves capital letter F. That's a difference. Abraham's a natural father. Capital F father is your spiritual father, and there's no way a Catholic priest is my spiritual father. It's blasphemy. So, yeah, I knew I'd catch you on that. I knew I just had to look it up.
And the earth demonic entities as well. And I'm going to share that with you in just a moment too. Like I said, there's two different directions that we're being bombarded with this. Listen in.
Taking control of people and doing it at a very easily, or doing it with ease, I should say. And that's very disturbing. I was told as a result of this that the scientists in the U.S. government believe that there is going to be a tremendous uptick in the number of criminal offenses that are going on, that there will be a massive increase in robberies, murders, rapes, you name it, because of these, well, as it was told to me, demonic influences that are so easily taking control of the people. You know, I've stated to you guys many times before, as we read what Paul said, we wrestle not against flesh and blood,
right,
but against principalities and powers, spiritual wickedness in high places.
There you go. There you go, right? Okay, now, so actually, I know this, I do talk about the two scientists that die in here, but on that one there, I remembered now, it was mainly because of what Mike had said on the video he did there. Now, let me go back. Let's continue on a little bit further. In fact, the next spot is going to be in 30 seconds anyway. And then we're going to go into another video where I spoke about this. And then I'm going to, and then we got one more part here I want to still bring out for you as well. And we'll kind of elaborate as we go here. Listen in.
And think about something. Every time an issue goes wrong in their lives, instantly something starts speaking to their minds. It's almost like their mind becomes a table. And sometimes things will suggest that you do something this way, or that you do something the other way. And it's almost like a person will begin to listen.
See, you keep posting that as though you got a good point there, but it's saying Father Abraham, little f, not capital F. If it was our spiritual father, it would be in a capital F. So stop pretending you're not understanding my point here.
To their thoughts, you know, in the Bible it says you capture your thoughts. So the Bible gives us a hint that not everything you think about is your thoughts, as most of the thoughts that we have are external. All one need to do is analyze them. That's CERN.
Amen.
Think of the scripture where the Bible says, the man thinketh in his heart, so is he. There's a reason why the word of God says that. What's in your heart, what you think with your heart, is what is you. What you think with your head may not be you. Your head is a receiver and transmitter, and it can receive external thoughts and things, whereas your heart is different. In fact, when Jesus gives the parable about the seed and when it falls on the stone and falls on the thorns and amongst thorns, etc. Then he talks about it falling into good soil. He said, but each time he talks about the heart each time as well. You know, they received it gladly for a little bit in their heart, but you know, then Satan comes and takes it away.
Thank you for that link, Di. That was interesting.
Very deep understanding in that parable that Jesus says, but a lot of people never really truly understand what Jesus says about that. And that's whoa. The better we can understand the words that the apostles and Jesus said and the prophets spoke about, I tell you what, if you really could start to grasp the truth of it and really dig deep into this, you'll begin to know how that armor of God needs to be worn. You know, I mean, it does you no good to be dressed up like a soldier if you don't know how to use the instruments
I enjoyed it.
You have to have for a battle out there. Same thing like when I did the video about intrusive thoughts. You know, people are being bombarded with thoughts, just like Mike is saying. These thoughts are just coming to you. You have no idea. You know, probably 90% of the thoughts that come to your head are not even you. Think about that. Think about it. All right, let's continue on a little bit further.
Tampering with pulling out antimatter and things like that.
Protestants didn't show up until Martin Luther 1517. The difference is the Protestants don't claim they're Peter. Your guys claim you're Peter. That's the difference.
Produce this. The same effect hits everybody. They cannot act upon their thoughts. They have to really be sober. In fact, there is a drug that people take at that laboratory if it becomes too much. And it's somewhat like a tranquilizer. Because what normally happens is a person can be overwhelmed by thoughts, by suggestions, it's almost like having a dream but being awake at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So then the line between reality and the dream world becomes blurred, unfortunately. It's not a dream world. That's a spiritual world, right? That's wrapped around this planet because they know, and when they talk about the Balaam ball, it is literally thin.
Yeah.
It's thinner than a human hair. And it's wrapped around all things that have life, which means right now between you and I, another dimension does exist full of entities ready to get at us, right? The only thing holding that back is what God has placed.
See, that's the problems with the Catholics. There's no love in their language. Han, I wish you didn't do that. Every heretic says that. That's their language. We don't use the term heretic, but he's using the term heretic.
Over us. Evil can pierce that veil.
Okay, now see what he said, Han. It doesn't matter. You're right.
What do you think they paid all these?
I'll pause it there again before we go into the next part of this video here, which we'll do here in just a moment here. But let me just clarify in saying that, like I said, there's more than one way that this actually works. And that's what I want you to understand. I'm learning myself, the dimensions around us, the ether that separates other dimensions is one way, but then there are also entities that are within the earth itself. The fallen angels are in prison, literally in prison inside the inner earth. If you ever see the video I did on Antarctica and the fallen angels in prison there, over 1 million views there. And I've done a couple of videos since then going deeper into that subject. I really need to create a playlist, I guess, just on that issue alone. I'm not very good at creating these playlists, and I probably should have more because there's so much information when I go back to look for it. I can't find it because I can't remember how I titled it. But anyway, let me play this one here in light of what Mike is saying here. And I've got it at 6 minute mark roughly. This close enough to that there. And this is going to be one of the meetings that I was privy to, where we were talking about the inner earth and fracking. And by the way, yesterday where Mike talks about the earth cracking open and the oceans and the water that is within there and stuff like that, I actually speak about that on this video here as well, back on September 29th of 2021. You'll hear that as we go on there, but if you just remember that from yesterday, this is one of the videos that have answered that. Let's listen.
Lazarus does make it, but there's this gulf, this body of water that's between the two, and it doesn't ever say it's a gulf of fire. And some people might have the idea that it's a gulf of fire, but it's not. It's actually a body of water. Now, from many of the reports and the things that I have set in on before, I know that in the center of the earth, there is a huge ocean there. And just like the oceans that we have on our earth here, there are oceans inside the earth as well, and actually more in depth than what our own oceans are. And that ocean, that water separates from the center of the earth to our side here. And if you go deep enough, you can actually hit that ocean. We've actually done that before in doing a drill operation off the coast of out of the Pacific Ocean, off the coast of California, which actually allowed a prehistoric creature to enter into this side of the earth there. But listen to the report here, what they said here. I thought,
by the way, that what I was talking about there, that's the movie Underwater that came out, I think, in 2020, where there was a creature that was brought through. I brought that out before. I think I did share that publicly. It was on Patreon as well. But that creature there was like a Godzilla type of creature. That happened, I want to say either, I think when I did the video originally, I was thinking it was in the 1990s, could have been in the 1980s there. And I did a subsequent another video about it because there was another guy that actually did bring out the information on that as well after I'd put the video out, and which just corroborated the information that I was sharing to be true. Of course, I knew the entire story, how we killed the creature, etc. But that thing came through because we pierced the ocean in there with that drill down in there. Now there has been some suggestion that it was because there's an interconnecting underwater cave that went from that side to the other that was near that oil rig that was put out there. But the way it was explained to me is that we actually created that opening as a result of that. Don't really know which one was the correct one, but we'll continue on to listen to this just for a second so you can hear a little bit more of what I was going to say on this.
Thought it was very interesting in light of that.
Okay, you're right in the first place, Hannah. I should have hit him. You know, like, that's not cool saying that. So I'm done with that. I'm not giving Catholics any oxygen. See you later, Pope.
Information, especially in light of the biblical passage right here. So the CIA believes that water serves as a barrier and that it serves as a containment method for those evil entities that are within the earth. And also for the spirits of the dead that can't seem to get back over on this side here. Because they know, like I said, they know that there's that huge body of water that separates between this side and that side there. But the CIA has noted, however, this huge increase in demonic energy or spirits are coming up on the earth, and oddly enough, they have linked fracking to the opening for these demonic spirits to be released. Fracking.
Still got 20 minutes to go, though.
That kind of blew me away that they actually believe that fracking is opening up the portals. And why would fracking do that? Because it's punching a hole through to the center of the earth there. And they believe, as far as the demons at least, they're able to come through as a result of that.
Wow, that's crazy. Fracking opens up the portals for demons to come through. Wow.
And out west, we have, according to what I was told here in the briefing, some 50,000 fracking wells. And even though we supposedly stopped using nuclear weapons to frack, it is a lie. We continue that same process. I want to play for you a little clip here. This is, of course,
No, to really play the clip there, it's where they're talking about the fracking, and I have been told that yes, they still use nuclear devices to do the fracking.
Wow.
And
Okay, Tricky, good night, mate. God bless.
That works, but they seem to link that out west we're having more of an increase of these entities that are entering into people. And like I said, they've the scientists have created devices where they can see the movement of that type of energy and stuff. They call it energy. Christians that are aware of this call it evil spirits, and of course the uptick in crime and things like that. They kind of seem to think it's linked to this fracking, and as I said, they believe that the water is some sort of containment.
Back at you, Tricky. God bless you, bro.
Put the scripture up because I remembered, in the New Testament where the gulf that was fixed between that they could not pass and we cannot pass, etc. Things like that. So I found that kind of interesting. Now, whether or not that's exactly right, or if their hypothesis on evil entities are coming up through as a result of fracking or whatever, I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. But the thing is, I find it noteworthy, though, just the fact that it's spoken about on there. Let me go ahead and go to this other one here. Sorry, wrong video. Let me go back over here to where Mike is speaking here. We'll go to the 43-minute mark. Mike says, angels has the key and knows who wants out. They're talking about the book of Revelation now. And because Paul brings that up there about, Apollyon, Abaddon, etc., that wants out of that bottomless pit. And this is where I really take issue about the ether. This is why I wanted Paul to ask him the question about the ether. So, Mike, if you happen to ever listen to this video here, my question was because of the ether, and CERN opening up that portal is that we're going to bring Satan in using our own technology. Listen into this here. Well, let's hope it plays. Don't know why. Give me 1 second here. For some reason, we're not getting a volume this time around. I have to restart it. Let's go back to the 43. Should take a second here. Let's listen in.
Released from heaven with the key to the bottomless pit to open this portal into the abyss, into the darkness. And you just got to wonder.
That crazy place.
Well, because that's why Shiva is out there, because the scientists from India that put Shiva out there is because Shiva is the god of the destroyer of the underworld. Is like the god of the underworld, and so they're trying to unlock the veil. They're trying to open the veil, trying to pierce the veil. You know, Revelation tells us that there is an angel that's released from heaven with the key to the bottomless pit to open this portal into the abyss, into the darkness. And you just got to wonder, could CERN be that portal?
If I tell you what, if that angel, when that angel comes down and gives that key, to see, here's one weird thing. Even having this conversation is they absolutely know the Bible, right?
Yes.
That angel that comes down with the key, they know who that is. They also know who's in the pit themselves.
Yes.
That wants out, right?
Yes.
Because the word is, they see us at times. So they absolutely know the spiritual part of things.
Yes.
We, the Christians, we're the ones that don't believe the spiritual side of things too much. Not too much, but we're just not,
Well, we don't want to know. It's because we don't want to know. I mean, the more I read about the bottomless pit, and the more I recognize that there has to be a portal to hell, and that because it talks about in Revelation that there's more demons that have to be released. There's 4 from the river Euphrates area, okay, and that this one that comes out of the bottomless pit, Apollyon. So we don't want to know what's down there, but they know what's there. And Lucifer, they have to open this to release the.
I'll just pause it there. We don't need to continue to listen to that part there, but let's move on. And I want to play for you where I speak about that as well. I did this about 2 months ago, and let's see. I think I've actually already have it in the right spot. I believe it's it'll play for us.
Yes, we've done that too many times. You should know. Okay, so he laid hold on the old dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil, and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. Literally, it's thousands years. So it's more than 1,000, but it doesn't specify how many.
Now, I know that that's a stumbling block for a lot of Christians out there when I get into that right there, the translation of the word. But if you would.
But Barry, what if man builds the lock and the keys open it with, and the angel opens it with a key? And what if the lock is CERN? That's what I think.
For me a little bit on this. This is also where where the scripture talks about Gog of Magog. And if you look at the book of Ezekiel, Gog and Magog is about to take place now. So if you think about it, in the book of Revelation, why would John put a Gog and Magog battle as some futuristic event that will be still another 1,000 years away after everything ends? Why would God put us through a whole set of new trials all over again after we've already gone through the great trials? And we've come out and our robes are washed in the blood by the blood of the Lamb. We've been made white as snow. See, it doesn't line up. That's why you have to really search and begin to try to understand the Greek words that are in there, because sometimes the translation is where you lose the important information that you need to be aware of. So even if that's a little bit of a stumbling block, just think about it in that regard there. Why would 1,000 years later, Jesus is reigning on the earth, and all of a sudden now we're going to go get beat up by the devil again? It doesn't make any sense. Then what was the redemption for? If you've been redeemed and brought back already, then why are we going back to the devil again? Why is he coming up?
Good question.
But if you look at it in comparison to Ezekiel, and the way Ezekiel speaks of Gog and Magog battle, then maybe everything is about to take place now. You look at Revelation 9, the bottomless pit being opened up there. Well, it's interesting. If the bottomless pit is opened up in Revelation 9, what is it, 2 different ones? Okay, just a little thought to think about. Let's listen in.
And he cast him into a bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more. I am really of the opinion that bottomless pit is another dimension, and that seal, of course, is the ether that keeps him from crossing over, unless someone through the technology, like in the case, we could say in the case of CERN, and let me just pull that up, right? The Hadron Collider.
Let me, you see that creature right there? Somebody had sent that to me. That made me think about the
reptilians.
when Paul and Mike were saying the other day about the 3 unclean spirits like frogs, because like I said, I've been told they have like a lizard like a head, similar to what a frog would look like. And even though they have like dinosaur type feet there, as you can see, and the statue, some statue down in South America, from what I understand there, and very muscular. You know, like I said, you know, the scripture, when I look at the book of Joel,
Only a pole shift can move every mountain out of place. It's the only thing that can do that. So we've got a pole shift coming.
These that come in, they're like horses, but like a horseman, in other words, like a man that runs, the guy that rides a horse, he runs on his hind 2 legs. That's the way they run. And they're just monstrous in size, 12 foot tall, from what I've heard, 9 to 12 foot tall. They got feet, even though they're not frog feet webbed, they still kind of look like a frog's foot. So, you know, could that be something to think about? Just a thought.
You could have something like CERN that could literally open up another dimension, could open up that spot that allows Satan to enter in. And I think that's exactly where we're headed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's exactly what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is the way they're doing it, just like Atlantis. They're bringing in Satan. They're bringing in Planet X Nibiru, which is known to be a draconian planet. They're bringing right back. So, all right, let's take a peek back over here. Let's go back to Revelation. So they put in there for that till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. Going to be loosed a little season. Yeah, about to be loosed right now. And I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them.
This is important right here. Very important.
And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus.
You got to remember the scripture, we're talking about a beast kingdom. All right. The devil is considered a serpent. Jesus said about the Pharisees that they were serpents and vipers, seed of serpent. Seed of serpent, what? He put all the bloodshed upon them all the way back to Cain, or Abel, that Cain slew in the Garden of Eden.
G'day, Not. Good to see ya.
All right. Keep that all in mind. And now I'm going to talk about the thrones that are set up. It looks like a godly thing until you see what's going to happen.
You know, it's interesting that one part of the verse to start with. I think generally we look at that, and I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. We think of that as a good thing. But then it follows with, and I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image. Maybe those thrones are what is being set up for that little season by Satan to bring about judgment against those Christians that have a testimony of Jesus. The witness of Jesus. And by the way, what is the witness of Jesus? That you believe that he's the Son of God. That you consider him the divine Son of God.
Yep.
Which, by the way, is a direct violation of Noahide laws.
There you go. The 7 Noahide laws in particular, remember, and I maybe on this video I spoke about this, but if not, I know I just did it recently. Jesus, when Caiaphas was judging him, he did not condemn him to death for talking about destroy this temple, I'll build it in 3 days.
Yeah.
He condemned him.
But I'm aware that around the CERN, they're seeing things in the forest like giants and elves and really creepy stuff. So I'm aware of that.
When the question was asked, are you the Son of God? Now, oddly enough, you get people like Tovia Singer and some of these other rabbi teachers and stuff. They like to make a big do out of, or no, not Tovia Singer. I shouldn't say Tovia. It was actually Yitzhak Shapir that said this. He said that Israel are the sons of God. That's okay to say, right? But when it came to Jesus being the Son of God, according...
Not in relate to them climate laws, when a volcano blows, in 1 hour it pumps out more carbon dioxide than mankind's total 120 years on fuel. It pumps out more carbon dioxide in 1 hour than 120 years of driving cars in our time. So it's a waste of time. It's natural. You're right.
To the Pharisee Caiaphas, he had blasphemed God by saying, and he didn't say he was the Son of God, he just said, thou sayest, and he rips his garment and says, what more do you need? You've heard his blasphemy. So for you to believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, see, they receive the mark upon the forehead. Okay, what happens? They're going to get beheaded because of the testimony which they held, which is that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. I saw the souls of them who were beheaded for the witness of Jesus. What is the witness of Jesus? That he is the Son of God. So if Jesus just said to Caiaphas, thou sayest, when he talks about the issue about being the Son of God, and you hold that testimony as the Son of, that Jesus is the Son of God, then guess what? You're guilty of blasphemy. The same Pharisees then are the same Pharisees today. They ain't changed their opinion one bit. You don't think that they're not going to behead you? The only thing holding them back, and it's interesting, Mike kind of hints to that, but he doesn't, even Mike is, that's the only problem I have with Mike is still, he still holds that Zionist view there, and he doesn't realize who's controlling Israel. The true Israel are those Jews that are living in the land there that believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Even the Palestinian Christians, they're more true Israelites because a lot of them, 50% Palestinian are crypto Jews. You don't know that?
Wow.
I mean, when they came to the land of Israel.
Wow, 50% of the Palestinians are crypto Christians. Wow, I never knew that. Wow.
The first prime minister.
That puts a different spin on it with Zion, doesn't it?
Of Israel, etc., all knew that 50% of them were crypto Jews. They were trying to convert them to Judaism. But they didn't want Judaism. They wanted to still be believers in Jesus.
Yeah, but I also heard them groans as well. That's what I was bringing up, actually.
And I'm not saying whether they were Catholic or whatever. I'm not promoting one denominational view over the other. This has nothing to do with that. It's the fact is, a lot of them were believers already. They didn't need a conversion to Judaism. That's why I say support Israel, sure. Even Jewish people that don't recognize Jesus to be the Messiah, don't be against them. Absolutely not. Pray for them that their eyes will come open. My gosh, absolutely. But when you're supporting the government of Israel, and not everybody in the government is a bad guy either. You know, those ones that are trying to stand up against Netanyahu and his right-wing extremist government that he's created over there, they're actually better than the ones on the right there. Because why? At least they believe in freedom of religion over there in this country. To some degree. Not all of them, but to some degree they do. But they're going to wait until everything falls into a calamity and you can do nothing about it. When America is brought to her knees That's when they're going to force the Noahide laws. Watch what people like DeSantis and them are doing. Just watch. That's where it's coming to, friends. I'm Stephen Benin. Listen, thank you for listening. I want to thank you as patrons that support this broadcast. Your contribution, regardless, it can be as simple as $1 a month. You're the ones that really help us. We appreciate that. There are some of you that you still support us directly.